Here we go, here we go, here we go. For another rock and roll march. It is still the heat wave and big storms are coming. I gotta admire beautiful flowers here. Look at how beautiful, beautiful, beautiful flowers. Freestyle over time, every time for the farmers, butchers, bakers, nurses, doctors, grocery store clerks, those in the daycares. Changing some diapers, those in the daycares. Changing some of those diapers, I gotta sing some rock and roll for the daycare workers. Changing some diapers as I go into the sun. Here we are on the go, and here we are on the love. And for the butchers, the bakers, the nurses, the doctors, the truckers, the firefighters, LOV, the plumbers. Financially stressed still. I guess I could say I'm broke. I've been broke and on and off, but I gotta be grateful because I got an opportunity the other day, to 2 weeks ago to make $30 an hour, 150 for 5 hours. So it is June 25th and the sun is shining. We're gonna go roundabout, marching overtime every time, as I am an independent Aspie artist, athlete, philosopher. And today is on the menu is the NATO, North Atlantic Treaty Organization. Maybe we're gonna discuss it. We're gonna analyze it. We're gonna go on that rock and roll for that 24/7 for the butchers, bakers, nurses, doctors, grocery store clerks, and for the youth. Loving me, seeing some youth getting some of that ice cream, and I'm joyous on the happy side, but financially stressed. I'm just gonna get rid of some garbage. Yeah. Gonna get rid of some garbage, and we're gonna get doing on the go. And you know how it is with us, rock and roll 24/7, geopolitics 24/7, sports and fitness 24/7 as I go. Roundabout, we're gonna go from my neighborhood roundabout to the river, by the river. Yesterday we weren't by the mountain, and that's how we gotta get doing on that. And we gotta get doing on the go with the butchers, the bakers, the nurses, the doctors, firefighters, for all involved in the production, distribution of food. That's how we gotta get drilling, and it's a beautiful sky. So I gotta say my gratitude again. Grateful, thankful, my rent's paid, electricity bills paid, got food and coffee, and I'm on that fitness journey ever since 2017 when I crossed Canada, coast to coast, ocean to ocean, and that event made me come out of being depressed and being suicidal. I was depressed and suicidal. There's just things which depression and high suicidal rates, and of course high unemployment. 80% is not acceptable, but my Aspie fellow neurodivergent community is something which of course we face as Aspies, Asperger's. I live with this neurological mental condition called Asperger's, and it can be weird, eccentric, a bit off sometimes. Seemingly I am myself less able, but I'm speak for myself as an individual citizen with Asperger's who loves that rock and roll. Right for NATO, rock and roll 24 for the butchers, bakers, nurses, doctors, and grocery store clerks, and all involved on the distribution of food. And that's how we're gonna go doing for my little children, the nieces, the daughters, the black, the white, the rainbow, all across the North American Collectif, all those, involved in the North American Democratic Republican Kingdom for the vision, which is fundamentally a call for a public-private partnership. And that's how we're gonna get doing. I gotta salute the bus drivers as well. The bus drivers, we gotta give a little bit of credit with that, and that's how we're gonna get doing on the go with that. And we're gonna get a little bit of hydration there. So I gotta give a shout out to the public workers who built this here. I always imagine how they were building it and how they were doing it, but gonna wait a few seconds here to get it on the go, and that's how we're gonna get drilling on the go side of things. And we're always gonna be meditating and wait usually 10 seconds for the get to clear. About 10, 5, 9, 7, 6, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Usually I wait about 10 seconds, 10 or so seconds, basically 5 seconds until it's gonna clear the way, and that's how we got it on the drill. And for the bus drivers, we're gonna go drilling on that. And now we're gonna hydrate. It's really hot. Oh. It's a bit hot. Actually, it's a bit really hot. I thought it was gonna get a little bit better, but the water is really hot, so I'm assuming the pipes. I wonder if in the future we're gonna be able to have some pipes which are gonna be more effective in keeping the water cold, keeping the water cold. That's what it's gonna be like that, and that's what we're gonna get doing on that, and we're gonna get it on the go, and we're gonna get it on the drill side of things, 24/7. Butchers, bakers, nurses, doctors, doctors, and gonna get it on the left, right, Z, and that's what we're gonna get doing like that, man. For all those involved in the production, distribution of food, that's what we're gonna get rock and rolling. And for all those, of course, involved in the production, distribution of food, we're gonna get drilling with that, and we're gonna always be mindful of our civilization's context and the civilizational complex that we are. We have this privilege, you know, just having that running water. Think about it. All the brains and the muscle to build the running water, to have it underneath, you know, to have it under. That's what we're gonna get doing here from Park Row, and somebody's gonna clear a bit. Gonna say a little bit of that clearing, and gonna go check on the fridge, see what we got, and we're always gonna be mindful, you know, that I got the privilege of civilization, and that's how we're gonna transform there. Not transform, I mean, go check if we got, and that's how we're gonna get drilling with that. That's how we're gonna get drilling. Let's see. So grateful if there will be some food. Always gonna be mindful. Oh yes, I'm gonna take some food for me, for my anonymous friend. So this is something which I gotta be mindful, you know, because this is a privilege right here. So we're gonna take the privilege right here and be great donations, you know, because I definitely need some food, and always gonna get it for the food. It starts with the farmers. So thank you to those who made these donations here, so that yours truly can stack up on it, and gotta be grateful with that, and gotta be grateful on the day. That's all we got. That's all we gotta get through. Some food. Got some food on that. Got some food, and gotta be grateful for that food, you know. Here we are, man. Oh, these are so nice. So I gotta get it for that food here, man. Look at this. Yeah. So we're gonna get some of that food here. We got some pins, you know. And we got some salads. So we got, and so we're gonna get doing with that. And so we're gonna get a pear. We're gonna eat a pear on the way. Put this in the backpack. Yeah. Now it's got some heavy, got some heavy. That's why we're gonna get drilling with that. Now he's got some pounds. He's got some pounds now, and I gotta be grateful, thankful for the donations, you know. Farmers, butchers, those who try. Look at this. Hey, be careful when you cross the street. Be nice, be good, be loving, and hey, a lot of things which people can take here. And you know, I was gonna add some more, but I think that's enough for me. And somebody can take these, and you know, you got some mushrooms if you want. Oh, I'm gonna take the mushrooms for my friend. My friend loves mushrooms, and they were donated in the fridge, so I guess they're safe, you know. Actually, I'm gonna leave them for somebody else. So all this is for the taking. I'm gonna come check back after my workout. See, probably gonna be empty, but hey, thank you for those who fill this fridge up. And always gotta be grateful, thankful with the food, eh? Food security, and the farmers, the butchers, the bakers, the nurses, and the doctors, the firefighters, the plumbers, the electricians, and all involved in the production, distribution of food. You know, you got some sunshine food, and that's always good for us. And now we're gonna get a little bit of this as we're gonna go marching towards the sun, and that's how we're gonna turn our heads left and right here. Super important to turn our heads left and right, and super important, you know, to eat and be on the joyful side, I guess, you know, to be a little bit on the joy side, if you will, you know. Here we are, you know, a little bit on the joy side, and this is gonna be cleared up. And I love to see couples, you know, people loving and hugging and doing the things that they do on a daily basis, you know. So it's always important, you know, to get it on the go, and that's how we gotta get drilling here, man. As we go back, and here we got a dog park, a nice dog park here, and that's how we gotta get drilling, man. Dog park. And we always got it for the butchers, the bakers, the nurses, doctors, and firefighters, the plumbers, you know, the electricians, all the bus drivers. That's how we're gonna get doing, man. And so we're gonna get doing on that, and we're gonna get loving a little bit in the sun, man. So I'm happy now. You know, I got some of this beautiful, which I'm gonna wash before I eat, because you know you gotta wash it before you eat it. But sometimes, consequently, it's a bit, you know, it's a bit ripe. But nonetheless, I gotta be grateful for those who donated on the market. You're gonna need to be washed again. See, we're gonna wash it right here. There we go. We're gonna wash it right here. We're gonna wash it right here. That's what we're gonna get doing on that. We're gonna wash it right here, and that's how we're gonna get. See, that's how we're gonna get doing on that. You're gonna get doing on the left, right there, and that's how we're gonna get doing on that, and we're gonna get it on the left. That's how we're gonna get doing on that. So we're gonna get drilling, man, and see somebody's happy in the park, always bringing some joy. So now that we washed it and the sun, you know, let's get it on the go. And yes, for the butchers, the bakers, the nurses, I gotta think of the thousands of truckers. As I'm taking this bite, I'm gonna be saluting all the truckers who transported these goods, and all the farmers and all the producers who transported these goods across the 63. Hey, got it, watch it. The police, maybe they need some emergency. Good job. You pulled on the right and you get out of the way. Get out of the way, get out of the way. Somebody got to sing that rock and roll for the police, as I sing that rock and roll for my brothers and sisters who do their criminal rehabilitation. You know, somebody got to sing rock and roll. I'm not perfect, you're not perfect. But all this civilization is a privilege, you know, just eating this. Think about that for a second. Gotta give a salutation to all the thousands of truckers and thousands of farmers and those who labored and who turned it for me to have this, and for the donations, you know, because I have Asperger's, so long-term employment is more difficult for me, so I'm gonna take a bite out of it. Oh yeah. Oh yeah. It's still good. Not the freshest, but I can't complain, you know, so I can't complain. That's how we are. That's how we do, and So we gotta get doing with that, and we gotta get on the love, man. Somebody making that good loving, and that's enough for that, and that's all we got. And so we gotta get loving, man, you know. So speaking of the garbage collectors gotta be thinking about them, and gotta be thinking about them, and gotta be thinking about them, you know. So that's all we gotta get doing, man, you know. For the children, the youth, gotta send that LOV for the youth, you know. So think about the thousands of trucks now across the logistics of the 63, and turn your heads left and right before you cross the street, please, please, please. So think about that for a minute, for a second, for just 5 seconds. All the logistics that have evolved, and when I'm referring to the North American Collective Civilizational Complex, I'm referring to the 10 provinces, 50 states, 3 territories, because I have an integral thinking, geopolitical strategic thinking about it, and I'm going to launch the series, the geopolitical strategy for the North American Collective 21st Century Dominance, and actually insurance of freedom first and foremost, because enough of my face, that's what it's about, but nonetheless to proceed in such a way. And I don't want to divulge into too much intellectual, academic, scholarly geopolitics, because sometimes my geopolitical strategies and theories are more of an intellectual, academic manner. But nonetheless, what I meant to say is it takes both brains, muscle, and will. And not only that, but some loving, you know, because it's not all about the true north, strong, and free. Freedom, please, don't leave that there for others. This is public. Just make an effort. Keep it with you, or put it in the trash right there. Where's the bin? I gotta show the proof that there's a bin, because I know there is. I know there is. Unless it was taken away. I know there's a bin. You see, there's the bin. See the black bin there? You see in the focus? So that's a garbage bin. So just cross the street. You know, just don't leave it here for others, you know. Just, we're in the public, so I have myself added responsibilities, duties, and obligations, which normally I don't have. If I would have stayed home, I would have not had the same, right? I'm gonna eat the pear and get on to the NATO meeting, which is the last day today. So although it's a bit on the gas side, we're gonna get it on the go, and that's what we're gonna get doing. Although it's on the it's already a bit ripe, so I guess they put it there because it was kind of expiring, but nonetheless, I really appreciate having it, because to be honest with you, that was my first pear of 2025, so I gotta say a blessing. I'm a bit of a mystic, parallel to being an artist, athlete, philosopher, and geopolitical theoretical analyst and theorist. And I have to say goddess, you know, the goddess who dances with the sun to produce all fruits, vegetables that are recolted and produced and distributed by our brothers and sisters, workers, whether in trucking, whether in labor, whether in business. As I gaze at a beautiful sky, the dancing goddess, as I will to build the Forgotten Goddess Temple, and of course to lay the foundations for the Dancing Goddess Army to be a 21st century institution for dancing and environmental cleaning. You know, you gotta, if that's compostable, we got a lot of work to do. We got a lot of work to do in the cities, in the small towns, and across the 63, 10 provinces, 50 states, 3 territories. And I'm all about Arbeit. I do will to have friends, but friends with benefits only, because my neurological mental divergent condition is unique. You know, we Aspies have a unique worldview. We have our brains are mutated, and at the micro level, there's not big bulging mutations of an Aspie brain. At a microscopic level, Aspies have these mutations of the brain, and so due to the fact that I live, and I'm gonna just say 5 minutes or a few minutes on Asperger's, which is this neurological mental divergent condition with which I live with. And of course, it's this neurological mental divergent condition with which I have to always build bridges with other neurotypicals, and the neurotypicals, you constitute the 99.56%. So 99.56% are constituting, of course, the 99.56% of neurotypicals. So you are the neurotypicals, the majority of the population. So I always have to build bridges. And it's not an antagonistic relation, you know. It's not a versus contra, good or bad, good or evil. It's just Aspies, we have emotions, we have compassion. A lot of the confusion comes that we do not verbally console necessarily. Myself as an individual, part of this tiny community, because there's not a lot of Aspies in the world. I'm part of this less than 1 percentile, less than half of a percent, about 0.44% only have Asperger's. And so due to this neurological condition, of course, makes me predisposed to special interests, and those special interests preoccupy with intensity, super focus my holy daily rituals and routines, which usually focus on my special trinity, geopolitics. And from this morning, you know, I've been involved with geopolitical studying, geopolitical analysis, and of course, geopolitics 24/7, sports and fitness, 24/7, and of course, geopolitics 24/7, sports and fitness 24/7, and of course, dancing is my favorite sport, and rock and roll with that, rock and roll with that, rock and roll with that. So that's what it is, rock and roll, sports and fitness 24/7. And of course, you see my videos, I have this ritualized routine for years. And for years, I've been involved in that routine in any shape or form. And even today, this morning, I was supposed to leave at 3. I delayed it until 5 o'clock because I was so involved in analyzing the discourse by Mark Rutte. Mark Rutte is the General Secretary of NATO, North Atlantic Treaty Organization, and Donald Trump, and to see if the ceasefire between Israel and Iran is going to hold. So those are the main point of contention in the world of geopolitics today, and of course it reverberates. I just saw the gas went down from last night by 5 cents. It's 161, but it went up from 156. So it went up 5 cents and then 5 cents, that's 10 cents, and now it went down by another 5 cents. Right, but for 100, it's increasing, and the cost of living has increased, and of course added pressure on the increasing cost of living parallel to the increasing debt servicing problem with the increasing credit cards, the people being maxed out. Majority of people, I don't have credit cards myself, but if a 5 cent increases and the person has to travel daily 50 kilometers, then you know it's an extra few dollars out of your pocket. Every day, an extra $3. So just mathematical calculations of a financial matter, which are very simple in premise, you know. The problem, double economic, financial, commercial problem since February 2020, when, of course, myself, I had COVID, and I encourage you all to keep the COVID protocols. Keep the protocols of COVID, you know. Please keep and disinfect your hands, and hygiene is super important. And I'm going to go through this side here. And we're going to go by this side right here. So it's super important to keep the protocols of COVID. That's of course something which I call and urge all to do, and I give a shout out to the public workers who constructed the buildings, and I do need construction workers for building the floor, which I will to build the North American People's Imperial Coliseum to be 11 times bigger than the Caesar Superdome. Before it used to be known as the Mercedes-Benz, and prior to that it was known as the Louisiana Superdome. And on the Canadian-US border to build this biggest sports structure ever. And they built this here, this new structure during COVID. Here you can come, and the water park is new, so I see that it's being put to use, because today is the last day of the heat wave. I just gotta go on the side because I give the children priority, children first, and I'm just gonna contour the side, you know, to let them have fun and and their joy is important here, you know. That's the most important thing, is they're gonna go, and I guess a little water splashing with the heat, you know, is something which is joyous, and this special occasion for them, and that's always something which matters, you know, children's joy, because the children are innocent, and I'm not sure, but with these I believe you can make some juice. I think you can make some juice with these, something like that, but gotta double check. I saw a recipe once, I think, online, and it's those trees. So during COVID, I watched a lot of how to do, and emergency preparedness if you're nurture and the breakdown of civilization as we know it, which is potentially, of course, that's why I've been calling for the creation of the Dragon Army. The public-private partnership Dragon Army, because the Dragon Army is fundamentally a call for a public-private partnership vis-a-vis and traverse the 63, the 10 provinces, 50 states, and 3 territories, the 63 for the convergence, and that's what we gotta be doing here, 'cause we got this civilizational privilege, and I'm gonna go by the underground. So I'm gonna cross there. Cross here. Gotta salute the train conductors, and hey, those who build the railroads, the railways, railways, and I always build a little bit of that brains and muscle and how they were built, how they were laid, and I gotta salute, the workers of the past in the 20th century who built all this railways, all the highways, all the aqueducts, the public workers, because that's how we got this civilizational privilege, And civilization is really a privilege if you think about it. Just having running water, electricity, go Hydro-Quebec, go, Civilization is a privilege, or the privilege of civilization. That was my thesis as the People's Doctor back in 2023 February, which I have to revise and check and relaunch and redo. Anybody want blah 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 commission. My only stress now is really financial, economic, commercial. Besides that, I've been in the field and I have Asperger's. And Asperger's, the problem with us Aspies is that there's a high unemployment rate. 80% is 11 times higher than the vast majority. Coupled with unemployment is the inability to make lots of friends. And I only have very few friends. Friends with benefits only from now on. Just I don't want to waste anybody's time, I don't want to waste anybody's time, really. I just don't want to waste anybody's time. I'm part of the LGBTQ community, LGBTQ, androgynous, pansexual, due to my reincarnation. Sometimes was born a man and woman, you get 50-50 now. Adrian Hanna Dragon, and I'm a pro-labor and love universal revolutionary centrist. I'm a philosopher and a geopolitical theoretical analyst and theorist. But first and foremost, my theories and propositions and initiatives are for the North American Collective, for the fusion of Canada, United States, the North and the South together in a public-private partnership complex, and based on my trinity of theories, the CIT citizen integration theory, the DRT debt refusion theory, and the DFT democratic fusion theory. Look at these beauties. I'm just gonna smell them. Look at these beauties, so fluffy. Oh, it smells a little bit of like rice, a bit like pea, pea and rice together. Pea and rice, a bit like pea and rice together. That's a bit what it is, a little bit that pea and rice, and that's all we have, and that's all we gotta get doing on that, and we gotta be transparent to everything that we have to be facing here, and that's how, So grateful for this. Gonna leave it a bit, 20 seconds to clear the pipes. You gotta clear those pipes really well. It's super important to clear those pipes because you get that rust going on, and it takes a little bit of that technical science. And salutation for the public workers who built the North American Collective Civilizational Complex. So we gotta rock and roll. Let's go. Gotta get that HYDRA. Yeah, now I'm well hydrated. I can go rock and roll to the river, by the river. So I just want to make a call here. Bring me the permission, bring me the slips, and I am willing to paint here. Put some yellow, some purple, some red, some pink, any color, rainbow color, black and white and rainbow here, because I find it really gray, and I think it would greatly embellish. Greatly embellish this locale, this place, which is a transportation hub, a public transportation hub, and I think that it would be really great if I would volunteer. In other words, I would just love to volunteer, just love to volunteers. I need volunteers. Pledge your allegiance for my dream, the dancing goddess and the dragon kingdom. The dancing goddess and the dragon kingdom. So that's what I gotta do, man, here. We gotta get on the go, man, and we gotta get doing on the go. Yeah, man. I think all my fellow citizens would enjoy that, Anyways, maybe some would more than others, but I guess the colors, it's not just gonna be red, my favorite color. Not just gonna be red, my favorite color, but some other colors, I guess. Other colors which can be black and white and rainbow together. Then we have all the colors. Black and white and rainbow would be nice. Like that, if somebody's favorite color is red like mine, or green, like the dancing goddess armies, or like those flowers, That's how we gotta get doing on that, and we gotta get doing on the love side of things, and that's how we gotta get doing on the drill, man. Got a beautiful sun. So we gotta get doing, man, and gotta get on that transposition, and we gotta be grateful, because I take it every day, carpe diem, ever since I died of COVID. I live carpe diem every day ever since I died of COVID. That's what it is, and that's why I gotta get those drills. And I really call NATO leaders to come meet me, beautiful garden. Specifically North American leaders, because I'm mostly about the North American collective till the end, per the Rabo. Hawk Island, Montreal, and the Hawk Island, HAWK, and I will finish on Asperger's, and then gonna go into the geopolitical matters of today, which is the last day of the NATO meeting. The NATO meeting is the NATO meeting of North Atlantic Treaty Organization, which was formed in April 1949. Double check, but geopolitics is my special interest as an Aspie. We have special interest, also known as obsessive interest, and those special interests, also known as obsessive interest, preoccupy our daily habits, routines, and doings on a daily basis. Our daily habits, routines, and doings, right? So due to that fact, our daily habits, routines, and doings, our daily habits, routines, and doings, due to that preoccupation of our daily habits, routines, and doings, that's what we do most. We are involved in a very intense manner, working, studying, doing, engaging in those special interests. But of course, as an individual Aspie, mine happened to be the Holy Trinity, geopolitics 24/7, sports and fitness. Dancing is my favorite sport, and rock and roll. So that Holy Trinity happens from morning to sunset, sunrise, midnight, 3 a.m. in the morning. Rock and roll changes as big goes on a little bit on that. Darker shade. I make peace with my homosexual demons. I make love with the homosexuals. Yeah, that's what it is, rock and roll. Pansexual, androgynous. And, that's just part of one thing that's my sexuality, which is weird. And, nobody want to engage in sexual activities with me anyways. But if anybody does, black, white, or rainbow. And that's what it is with that, black, white, or rainbow. And, you can come loving with me. And just got to be 18 plus, though. 18 plus, gotta be of age in every state. 10 provinces, 50 states, 3 territories, and we're gonna apply a federal law. I guess would be smart. Well, Quebec is 16 plus, so Quebec, you gotta be 16, It's just the law for Quebec here in Quebec. I'm a Quebecer, fundamentally. In this life and in another life, I was born a Quebecoise, a woman, but before Quebec was known as Quebec of today in the 1700s, so whatever, their past lives, reincarnation aside, whether you believe in reincarnations or not, whatever your spiritual inclinations are, point is that I have Asperger's, and I'm part of this tiny community of 0.44% compared to you, the neurotypicals, of which you constitute the 99.56%, 99.56%, you know. So that's just basically what it is and how I do, and that's basically how I function within the parameters of those special interests and those ritualized routines which preoccupy and take most of my daily habits and routines are revolved in any way whatsoever, at least also internally. You gotta think that these things are internal. So you might see me, I don't know, doing some stretches, but at the same time, you might see me doing some push-ups. At the same time, there's a probability that in my brain is analyzing, revising, reanalyzing, reinterpreting, and doing speculation about geopolitical events of today, of yesterday, and possibly for the future. And I am an independent geopolitical theoretical analyst and theorist. As an Aspie, that's my special interest, and I excel in that to the point that I predicted what's happening now. I stated in every video, I predicted in 2019 that there's going to be an international conflagration on the horizon. An international conflagration on the horizon in 2019, October, November. Based on several levels of parameters of analysis, I predicted that in the coming years there's going to be an international conflagration in 2019. October, November. And I have proof. I have proof of work. I have proof of the video where I concluded and I developed a World War III scenario. Some of it was intellectual, academic, a bit on my special theories, of which, of course, if I can summarize, one of the main premises was that due to the fact that many nation states had not fully resolved their conflicts dating from the 20th century, specifically from the Cold War period, which lasted between 1947 and 1991, between March 1947 and December 1991. March 1947 and 1991, December 1991, March 1947 and December 1991. So basically to that is gonna be on the go for the side, and that's almost 45 years, you know, of the Cold War. That's a long time, a period. Almost 45 years. That's so many generations. It's more than 44 years. It's more than 44 years. It's more than 44 years, you know. More than 44 years, almost 45 years. And be careful here, it's a tough corner. This corner I know because it goes up. So you gotta be, although it's a one way, some people come there with the bikes and they go up and down, and this corner you gotta be careful here a bit when you cross the streets, you know. You gotta always double check, turn your heads left and right, here when you cross, you know. That's what you gotta do, because you got a bike path and you got citizens coming from that side, and then you got the valley type there. So just double check. It's a kind of tricky corner, so you gotta make yourself a little bit of a prudence, you know, just when you're in the public. And keep in mind that people are super stressed, especially when you're driving. After, you know, people are working 2 jobs and not making ends meet. And myself, you know, my only stress now in the past year has been financial, has been economic, financial, you know. Besides the financial, economic, of course, stress, it has been, of course, the point in time that it has been the financial stress. I've been depressed and suicidal, and problematic is that we Aspies have a high rate of suicidal ideation, suicidal tendencies, and suicide rates and depression rates are 9 times higher than the average rate. Can you imagine? 9 times higher, of course, than the average rate. 9 times higher. So basically, of course, due to that fact, it's of course 11. That's what it is, and 11 times higher, 11 times higher, the unemployment rate. That's what it is, and that's how we gotta get doing with that, and gotta get dealt with that, and I dealt with that, you know. I dealt with that. So having the fact that I dealt with that, I lived it, I've experienced it, and, you know, what got me out of being depressed and suicidal was crossing Canada coast to coast in 2017. In 2017, look at those beauties. In 2017, I crossed Canada coast to coast, and I'm just gonna smell them. That's what got me out of depression and suicide. Being depressed and suicidal is what got me out of depression. I think you can make some juice with this. I'm not sure, but maybe you can. Some juice. That's what it is. Anyway, so that's what got me out of being depressed and being suicidal. You know, being depressed and being suicidal, and crossing Canada made me establish a strong esprit de corps with my fellow Canadians. A strong esprit de corps with my fellow Canadians, and that's basically when I got out of my depression after I was depressed and suicidal. And of course, I had cross Canada. It was August. Look at that beautiful field of flowers. August. Isn't that just gorgeous? Look at that. Purple, purple, purple. Field of flowers of the summer. First week of summer. First Tuesday of summer. So I crossed Canada coast to coast in 2017, August. I went in BC, British Columbia. BC, British Columbia. And these are gorgeous. BC, British Columbia. BC, British Columbia. So basically I crossed Canada coast to coast and from BC, British Columbia, and beautiful. Thank you, public workers. You know I have a weakness for yellow flowers. I have a weakness for yellow flowers, a little bit of a big weakness for yellow flowers, but that's how it is anyway. So just wanted to put those parameters in, and of course remember, because that far I remember, but I just don't remember my life prior to 2015, 2014-ish. 2015-ish, 14-ish, it's blackout, and my memories are inaccessible. I got a retrograde amnesia, you know, and I used to live in a very moldy place prior to that. So this July 1st, next week, Tuesday, next week, today's Tuesday, June 25th, so next Monday is going to be the last day of June. So basically, I might have moved in 2016 or 2015 even, which means it's going to be 10 years. So I used to live in a basement, small basement. Hey, there's my totem bird, the hawk. Now I'm double happy, triple joyous, triple felicity, triple contentness. That's a hawk, baby. H-A-W-K, that's why we're in Hawk Island. Hawk Island. Hawk. That's a hawk in French, is an épervier. So basically that's what it is. And I moved from a very moldy place. It was a moldy underground basement, like a small prison cell, and I guess I served my time, you know. And that's the hawk, my totem bird, the hawk bird. See how it stands with the fly with the wings spread, and that's my totem bird right there. So that's a good omen for me. That's cleared the way for justice, strength, peace, love, and harmony, and healing, peace, strength, harmony. How about those flyers? We need to get some of those hawk helicopters and build new hawk helicopters for the 63, for the Empire, for total security, total service, total defense, based on my new 911 Dragon Army protocols for the collective North American civilizational complex, and of course to build the Dragon Army, the public-private partnership, North American Imperial SSD Legion, the SSD Legion parallel to the Dragon Army, to build of course the North American Imperial Dancing Goddess Army, of course the North American Imperial SSD Legion for the North American Collective, to build and rebuild the North American infrastructure, and of course to have total D, total security, total service, total defense. So back to what I was saying, I used to live in a very moldy place. So either I moved 2016 or 2015 in a moldy place, still on the island of Montreal, Hawk Island. It was a small underground place, and there was lots of mold, and that mold, like a type of small prison cell with lots of mold. So I moved from there, and I was depressed, suicidal, and in 2017 I crossed Canada coast to coast in August. I went in BC, British Columbia, and then of course I went in September, I went in Halifax, Nova Scotia, 2017. So that event in my life made me establish a strong esprit de corps with my fellow Quebecers, Canadians, North Americans, who I consider family. And since then, I started working out, training, exercising. I lost about between 80 and 93 pounds. I've accepted my Asperger's during COVID about 3.5 years ago, because I've been diagnosed for many years, more than several people, several citizens have diagnosed me and told me even online that, you know, you have Asperger's, and I said no, I didn't want to accept the label, but finally I did, and there's no medication for Asperger's. I just got to live with my characteristics. I don't use the word terminology symptoms, because symptom is for a mental illness. Well, Asperger's is not a mental illness. It is a neurological mental divergent condition which makes me predisposed to special interest, to repetition of words or sentences or phrases, to echolalia, and not knowing when to stop speaking or when to... The way we communicate is more interactive and sometimes overlapping, and strange communications, which is a neurodivergence, you know, and also the way we move sometimes can seem awkward and bizarre and strange, but that's just what Asperger's is. And see how my brain now functions due to the fact that I have geopolitics, due to the fact that geopolitics is my special interest. I always concord and meditate about geopolitical security, because as a North American I meditate and integrate all this event, me crossing this bridge now here, and of course meditating on the trucks, everything that they're carrying. Maybe some of these truckers have pears, bacon, cheese, milk, etc., valuables which are considered, of course, primary essence for the North American collective civilization in matters of food security, because that's what I address primarily in the aforementioned a priori mentioning of that paragraph which I just stated, which of course has to deal with food security if they're transporting, but other goods can be as well. But of course the main concern is food security and the increasing cost of living, blah 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 blah. With solutions, I do have some solutions, not all. The DRT, debt refusion theory, the DFT, democratic fusion theory, and the DRT, democratic fusion theory, citizen integration theory, and look at that beauty, and the debt refusion theory, I'm just gonna give it a smell. I cannot detect any specific scent, but I gotta say I love the blue. Isn't that just gorgeous? And it kind of looks like there's 4, 7, and then the 8 is kind of in between with the bigger one, like a family. Like a family. Anybody wants to be my family, you're welcome. Pledge your allegiance, friends with benefits only. Please understand, friends with benefits only, and support the dream. My dream is fundamentally a call for a public-private partnership, across the North American collective civilizational complex, as I look at those beautiful skies, Just sometimes you just gotta look up and see all this beauty, just concord it and just say, wow, look at the date today, Carpe Diem, 25th of June, this event, me manifesting and looking at the sky, and how much of a piece of dust I am, but I still get moody sometimes. I gotta thank Goddess, and my anonymous friend for giving me that book, which made me understand more about Asperger's and my vulnerabilities, because Aspies, we can be vulnerable. So a book called Appreciating Asperger's Syndrome has made me learn more about how I am different, and my difference can be sometimes exploited, can be sometimes misunderstood, can be sometimes used against me, and these vulnerabilities which I and many Aspies have. So I gotta be always constant and vigilant and prudent, and friends with benefits only. Pledge your allegiance, thou art family. And that's about the rock and roll song for the butchers, bakers, nurses, truckers, bakers, doctors, grocery store clerks, all the thousands of truckers across the 63, the 10 provinces, 50 states, and 3 territories. And we got to get that Democratic Republican of the 63 Imperial for the Imperial, the Empire, uniting, fusing Canada and the United States. My brothers and sisters, Canadians, the king is absent. Is the truckers, the butchers, the nurses, the doctors, the firefighters, the plumbers, the grocery store clerks, those in service doing, of course, changing some of those diapers. That's all we got to be manifesting on, and of course the sky, and that's all we got to get doing for those who change some diapers as well. Sing them some rock and roll in the daycares as much as we go for the fast food workers, the plumbers, the electricians, and the welders. Got to salute some of those welders. Always got to give a little bit of credit and salutation to the welders. Welders. Maybe there's some welding here. Possibly, probably up and down. There's welding everywhere. The trucks, or the cargo, they're going east and west, and some are going north and south across the 63, and some are the youth dancing and hopping and making some of that good loving, and that's how it is now for the fitness journey. I encourage you all to work out, train, exercise. My fitness journey began in 2017 After I crossed Canada coast to coast, and I lost between 80 and 93 pounds. I created my own workout training program system back in 2019, of which I am consequently very proud to have created. It is, of course, has been created to go hand in hand with a World War III scenario, of which consequently has happened as it is happening now in many ways, as I had predicted it in a general manner. My prediction was due to the fact that many unresolved conflicts still roamed around the planet, around the world, and especially those conflicts from the 20th century, specifically during the Cold War period, which lasted almost 45 years, more than 44 years and 9 months, between March 1947 and December 1991. And see, I focus on that bus and the numbers, although I see them blurred. I see 44, a line, and then 015. So always Aspie traits, characteristics. Sometimes we tend to focus on weird, awkward details of an object, of a thing. So again, if you see somebody who might inspect an object closely in a store, if you see somebody who might inspect an object in a store, you might be aware that that person might have Asperger's. He, she, they, whatever the case may be. If you see me, I've been doing this for years. And then I read about it, and I read it in the book that my anonymous friend, thank you for being a friend, and not because of the money, because I never had any, but nonetheless, I inspect objects really close to the eyes. I bring them so close to the face, like really, really close to the face, almost touching, but not really touching the nose or the eyes or the face, but really close. And you turn the object, I turn the object, I look where it's made, the grams, I calculate the weight, I do some speculations about import, export, etc. So that's all we gotta get doing with that, and that's all we gotta get doing on that, and that's all we gotta get doing on the go now. It's something which we have to be aware that person, if you see that is a characteristic of Asperger's. So that might be an Aspie doing that. So basically, is that Aspie doing that, and that's how we gotta get doing with the drill. And this is a characteristic, or repeating 2-3 times the same phrase, or echolalia, repeating verbatim per verbatim, meaning that's Latin for word what another citizen has said. And the problem is 3 main problems for Asperger's. I'm gonna finalize on Asperger's and move to my kingdom, which is geopolitics. The problem is a very high unemployment rate. And I had many jobs, but the problem is they don't last long. Many Aspies, a few weeks, a few days, a few months. There's a lot of confusion. A lot of people think it's a mental illness. It's a mental illness. It's not a mental illness. It's a neurodivergence. We see the world differently, and thus in certain social skills we might lack. The way we communicate might seem weird and odd. So we're weird. We can be very weird for the 99.56%, the neurotypicals, but not weird enough to not be able to build bridges. And I guess I burned so many bridges in my life, and I suffered, struggled, been depressed, and been suicidal. And I gotta salute those truckers, look at that. They're going east, west, north, south, so many goods. And the warehouse workers who are gonna unload. 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 The warehouse workers who are gonna unload, Also, the warehouse workers who are gonna unload. And that's what it is, man, and that's what we gotta get doing with that. The warehouse workers who are gonna unload. The warehouse workers who are gonna unload. Gotta think about that. So it's a big logistics, see? So it takes some brains and muscle. And geopolitically, we're vulnerable now because we're open to espionage and sabotage. Because antagonistic foreign forces, because we involved ourselves militarily. And due to this military involvement, there might be powers which have extensive financial capital and capital resources, or human resources, because sometimes it's not about the money, it's ideology also. Ideology can convict somebody to kill without any financial compensation, or to commit sabotage, not just necessarily kill a human being and citizen, but commit and destroy property of others, antagonistic civilizational complex. Yeah, it can be ideological. That's the thing. We have to be aware of that. As a geopolitical analyst and theorist, I have to take that into account. It's not all about the money, guys. Believe me, brothers and sisters in politics, it's not all about the money. 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 Don't make that mistake, Mr. Trump, in geopolitics. I'm telling you, don't make that mistake, because some citizens are not all about that Wall Street paper. Some citizens are willing to die for something that they believe in their minds, ideological minds, is higher purpose. So that's where we have to be aware and not be chauvinistic, because some people cannot be bought. Some people cannot be bought. You cannot buy some people. You cannot buy. They will believe they're doing the right thing and commit justice or vengeance in their minds, whatever, because we got involved in certain things, certain conflicts, which perhaps to say were none of our business as a collective North American civilizational complex. My position since 2019, since I actually survived COVID February 20, all my protocols initiatives are mostly for fusing Canada and for SSD, security, service, and defense, and encouraging citizens to work out, to train, to exercise, some of that good loving rock and roll with it. Defense, 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 to ensure secure freedom. I have freedom, freedom, freedom tatted there. Then I have Canada, Canada, Canada tatted there. But I suffered struggle, Aspies, we do suffer struggle. We have 9 times higher depression rates, 11 times higher unemployment. So paradoxically, we're a small community of 0.44%, less than 1%, less than half a percent, but it's 11 times higher. 80% of Aspies are unemployed. That's unacceptable. That's unacceptable. That is unacceptable as a advanced society. But more and more progress has been made in the past years about what Asperger's is and what Asperger's is not. What Asperger's is and what Asperger's is not. And it's not a mental illness. It's not a mental illness. That has to be understood fully, what it is, what it's not, and that's how we gotta get drilling here on the day here. And I gotta be discussing now geopolitics. Geopolitics from a perspective that working out, training, exercising keeps me in mental health, regular physical activity, and have been them, and will continue to call for the mass financing thereof. And look at these. They're doing a little bit of that drill for the dragon boat, and I think they're doing dragon boat. That's pretty fun, and I guess that's something I never did, but they're gonna get those arms, and they're gonna get those arm strength, and they're gonna get some of that loving, and they're gonna get some wind for the dragon, wind for horse. I guess I'm assuming a position where I'm there cheering them on, because I love to see people working out, training and exercising on that boat. So that's always fun for me to see people engaged in physical activity, whatever the physical activity is. Although, my favorite is dancing. Dancing is my favorite fitness and sports activity. So we are vulnerable to potential sabotage and espionage. There was some news about potential sleeper cells, but you see more and more cases of espionage, and even in the past 2 weeks there has been some mention of potential agricultural terrorism. 3 individuals, Chinese nationals, which were caught with some illegal biowarfare related, agricultural terrorists, biologically related, bacteriological related, potential devastating. I don't know too much technical about it, but and there's the mountain, and there's the downtown Korea. So yesterday we were there. That's miles and kilometers away, and that's Montreal, Hawk Island, HAWK, Hawk Island, Montreal, that you see. Island of the Hawk, right there, that's the downtown, and that's the mountain which you can see afar off there. We were there, right there, which see the other peak you can't see, but that's at the center of the island. You can see it afar off, the mountain, and that's where it is. You can see right atop the mountain there. My second home, Mount Royal, the Belvedere, Conjurenac. On the mountain, lots of mountains here, and of course, we need to start building those 44 tunnels in case of a thermonuclear war, whether we build them in tunnels across Canada, US, or in different places. We got to start building those 44 in case of a thermonuclear war, which is a possibility, and we need to get into that golden hawk. And now I'm going to discuss a little bit of a NATO summit before I digress and discuss the DRT, because it's important to discuss the DRT. So my special interest is geopolitics. The NATO summit, whatever all the blah blah blah, the paperwork, the other bureaucratic work and philosophical and lunches, I wonder how much the lunch cost, who prepared it, where, etc, etc, etc. Give me that info if you made it this far into the video. Dragon's long marches. How much coffee was consumed, how much club soda, how much soup, how much bacon, cheese, how much bread. That's a nice beauty one. How much cheese, how much bread? I don't know, of course. I'm just thinking in parallel. And the NATO summit 2025, which is ending today. I guess European Standard Time, you know, it's gonna end, of course, soon. So Canada, we're of course part of NATO. So the main conclusion, the main situational premise, the most important fundamental is that, from what we know, I still have to revise and see if it's a final declaration and final revision tonight when I get back, or tomorrow morning. Supposedly there was agreement to increase the spending to 5%. 5% defense. The target was, of course, 2%. The standard. They are trying to push it to 3%, and now supposedly they agreed to 5% of the GDP, that is, of the gross domestic product. The problem is, like I said, it's not all about the money. And money, you know, what is money? That's things to buy, sell. That's why the creation of the UE, of the Europe Universal Exchange Unit, best, via the DRT, the debt refusion theory, best. My debt refusion theory, because now we're living in tough economic financial times. Listen, it could happen tomorrow, Thursday, the 26th of June, that a stock market crash happens and a public financial collapse, okay, which I'm going to get into in the coming minutes. I am calling now for the NORAD NATO complex, for a public-private partnership, to mass finance the Dragon Army, to be only for SSD, North America, Canada, United States. It could be extended to NATO, and integrated with all existing public and private institutions and organizations. From the Mount Royal, let's go for the Dragon Summit, July, or by September 11th, I guess, to be the day maybe of the signing, September 11, 2025, for mass financing of 1% out of that 5%, or anywhere between $718 billion and $44 trillion in the coming 7 years to establish the Dragon Army based on my parameters, principles, and programs and propositions, such as the new 911 Dragon Total 911 Security and Service and Defense Complex, to only operate for SSD, North American centric, for North America, with the plan's proposal, of course, if there's a nuclear war, to evacuate a vast majority of the population of our NATO allies. So to work towards that, if there's a nuclear war, if there's invading armies, if speculation, you know, what if Russia and China really team up militarily, economically, and if China invades Taiwan, then they're going to create a mutually dependent, codependent defensive complex and military alliance complex right? Because we've seen that in the COVID during the past 44 years, correction, 44 months. In the past 44 months, we have, of course, seen that the complex, of course, has been for the North American civilizational complex to be in parallel with the NATO complex, and of course the integral work which the BRICS nations are doing, which is, of course, fundamentally Russia, China, Russia, solidification and integration of their economies and developing further their strengthening their military alliance vis-a-vis ending the unipolar world dominated by the United States post the collapse of the Soviet Union, and of course to create their multipolar world. And they said, they already declared that they have established it already. So that was their declaration in the past 3.5 years, that now there's a multipolar world now, and they're working to increase the multipolar order, solidify and establish it consequently furthermore. Turn your heads left and right before you cross the street. So consequently furthermore, solidify the creation of that multipolar world, economically, financially, politically, at all levels of the international order. Their new world order is a multipolar world according to what they want to build. Please don't pollute. It breaks my heart to see this. Of their multipolar world, because they also, China, the People's Republic of China, also has an unresolved conflict, and that conflict dates from the 20th century. It's an unresolved conflict. Together. So that also has to be taken into account. Now back to NATO, because fundamentally I'm a philosopher, geopolitical theoretical analyst and theorist who's a North American. I am a North American. That's what I know, North America, the collective North American civilizational complex. That's fundamentally what I know. In my experience, as much as I am self-taught, self-educated, and read on a daily basis and read tens of thousands of books and philosophy. I love those bikes. Philosophies, and philosophies, you know, on the bike. And as much as I know the ideologies, the premise, and if you want to engage on the discussion of People's Republic of China and perhaps the relation with Taiwan, you have to read, if you haven't read a bit, at least superficially, perhaps maybe only, the governance of China. The governance of China has to be read by anybody who wills to understand the geopolitical realities we're facing as Quebecers, Canadians, North Americans, because I am for fusion of the true north, strong and free with the whole land of the brave, home of the free, land of the brave, home of the free. But it adds some love to that, because being free and being brave, it's not enough. It's not enough. We gotta consequently add. We gotta consequently add a little bit of that. Add a little bit of that consequently. A little bit of that prudence, you know. So That's all we gotta do. So the terminology and the philosophies and the ideologies outlined in the governance of China, we have to fully understand it, We have to fully understand it. Because if we don't, at least superficially, there has to be a requiem or a fundamental understanding in, of course, proposition to the fact that we, as a collective, are faced with the potential of China invading Taiwan. And that, of course, knowledge and understanding has to be permeated by understanding China of today, of the 21st century, not of the 20th century, of the 21st century, modern China, as it is today, and it has grown, developed super infrastructure, has become the most populated country on the planet, nation state on the planet, or civilizational complex, and of course, with all their ideations and all their megaports development, they develop megaports, and their infrastructure has been, of course, extensive building of the megastructures, the megastructures building of the infrastructure, and that's what it has been with that, and that's how it has been for the left, right, and center. But they have a socialist communist. They even relate to Karl Marx, They even relate to Karl Marx in Governance of China, which is Xi Jinping's thoughts and theories and propositions and reformulation of socialism with Chinese characteristics, which they're building of the continuing building of what they call socialism with Chinese characteristics and a socialist spiritual civilization. Now, the word spiritual, how I relate to it is rock and roll, right? Because I'm a mystic. I believe in God, goddess, but I don't know so many things. But the word also, how Xi Jinping and other Chinese relate to the word spiritual in the original Han language, Chinese Han language, Han dialect, Han Chinese, might be very different than what I have in mind when I say rock and roll. Washing feet under Jesus. I don't mind some washing feet. I know Jesus. I love my rock and roll. I play a rainbow dragon for my homos. But nonetheless, washing feet, I don't mind for those who want to build the fort, the North American Imperial People's Coliseum, and the Forgotten Goddess Temple, and the House of the Dragon, Scarlet, the pyramid, scarlet red, and that's what we got to get doing with that. So basically what it is and what we have to formulate is, of course, the North American Civilizational Collective for the complex. That's all we have to be doing. For the complex of the North American Civilizational Collective is something which we have to be doing on the go, and that's what we got to get doing on that. So it's something which we have to be on the proposition that we are vulnerable again. If we keep involving ourselves in further military conflicts, we're going to be more and more involved. And I wrote a document after 2017, the North American population, for the North American Collective, of course, to be on the population side of the things, and that's how we got to get doing with that. For the North American Collective, I wrote the Public-Private Partnership Initiative for the peaceful resolution for the pacification of the North American population. That's how we gotta get doing with that. I'm just gonna cross the street here, and that's how we gotta turn your heads left and right. Still, even if you cross, sometimes you gotta be prudent when you cross the street, because you never know. I double check anyways. So basically I wrote a theory, a protocol, and of course my theory and protocols were for the North American Collective, and fundamentally the theories were a bit intellectual, academic, but the document that I written was similar propositions for the public-private partnership, North American-centric public-private partnership, for the peaceful resolution and peaceful reconciliation with non-NATO aligned diaspora members. So those who come to live with us, my brothers and sisters from elsewhere who come to live with us, who come to live with us from the North American opposition, that's what it is with that, that's what it is with the left, right, there. So the North American population is, of course, the North American centric, and of course the North American centric is something which we got in common, and of course the reconciliation with the North American population and the North American population for security to be reconciled in a peaceful, integral manner with non-NATO diaspora members, because in some nation states, NATO has taken direct military action, what I call direct military action, DMA. I'm not gonna go into it deep because I'm gonna not stop about that. But just I'm a philosopher, geopolitical theoretical analyst. Some of my theories and protocols and analysis are very academic, very scholarly, but also raw, a little bit rugged and original. The DMA, direct military action, which NATO has taken in several actions, which can cause consequently strong resentment to the point. In other words, my philosophy is that the strong resentment to the point that these diaspora groups are gonna cause direct sabotage in North America and in NATO countries because of certain issues. And that's just the realities of geopolitics. We got that, but that's a new reality for the 21st century, however, because of the Arab Spring, another ramification of Eastern Europe in the 90s, etc., and Iraq, and etc. So they're a bit historical analysis, and I'm not going to go into them. Suffice it to say that there's hope for reconciliation. 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 But this reconciliation has to be taken in a public-private partnership manner. Public-private partnership manner. It takes all the mobilization of all the institutions, organizations in a public and private manner in order to achieve that peaceful reconciliation with non-NATO member diaspora communities, which might develop or already have developed a certain hostility to North American collective security and freedom and prosperity and etc. I can give you a vis-a-vis premise. For example, Russian diaspora communities who have developed a certain malaise, a certain resentment, a certain antagonistic attitude towards citizens who have, of course, because NATO has supported Ukraine militarily. Sorry, guys. No problem, thanks. That's how it goes. So, to the North American collective, I like these yellow flowers. To the North American collective, that's how we got, and that's how you do it. So I gotta get to it. So that's just the reality. This is not a point of contention, this is not arguing. This is just raw, real, original, academic, intellectual, and part psychological, because although I'm vulnerable in certain things, and I'm not mastering Freud, anything like that, but my geopolitical analysis, that's what I excel at. That's my special interest, and that's 24/7, and I've been doing it for years and years and years. So here are the fruits, the big fruit, which is the dancing goddess and the dragon kingdom, and the other fruits, which are part of what I just discussed, the need for reconciliation with non-members of diaspora groups, and taking all these social cultural values into consideration, and the fact that we are engaged in direct military action, DMA. So now I introduce a concept which I have discussed years and years and years ago, possibly in 2020, 2021, and at the beginning of the NATO involvement in the Ukraine war, at the beginning of the NATO involvement in the Ukraine war, the NATO involvement in the Ukraine war, and Germany and us Canadians providing not only humanitarian aid, but also military aid to kill Russian soldiers, destroy Russian soldiers and Russian military hardware, etc. Again, I'm not on the field. I haven't been on the field in Israel, Hamas, post October 7, 2023, in Ukraine, Russia, with 300 men and women, nor in China, Taiwan, nor in the Middle East, nor in Iran, right? So, from the news, from the left, from the right, from the center, from the books, my education, spending some years depressed and suicidal with one foot in the streets, one foot in the libraries, all that contextual diplomatic analysis and the intellectual academic analysis and rigor, and my fact that I have Asperger's, it's It's not an obsession. Yes, I can be intense, super focused, super dedicated, especially sometimes I'm so intense, reading on geopolitics and geopolitical events, discerning the analysis and making formulations of potential protocols and programs and initiatives for the peaceful reconciliation with non-member diaspora groups such as etc. But fundamentally I'm a Quebecer, Canadian, North American. So fundamentally that's what it is. The North American civilizational complex. That's why today in 2025, summer begin, making the summer of love. I call for the financing between delay starting as latest on the day September 11 for 718 billion. And not for me, for the Dragon Army, to have access to all hotels, all motels, to implement my total mobile defense theory. The total mobile defense theory, TMDT, total mobile defense theory, TMDT, total mobile defense theory, TMDT, total mobile TMDT, total mobile defense theory. And when we add an S to that theory is a system, but I cannot formulate or be too explanative and explain too much about that defense theory because I started it post 2017, so it requires all the national security forces and the high-ranking members of the security apparatus such as of CSIS and the new defense minister David McGuinty and my of course cousin there, the big heck set. I was born in the United States 3 times, once as a woman, twice as a man, served in the US Army 2 times, post 76, twice. Once I was born as a woman, and that's what it is with that, and that's how we gotta get doing in the drill, and that's how we gotta be formulating about, the defense complex, because my theories are for total SSD. I see that there's a revival last 2 weeks ago, and I passed, there was almost nobody here, so it was kind of eerie because this is always a busy public transportation hub, and I guess we can go by the side there. This is always a busy transportation hub here, but it was a strike, and I don't know there's whole final resolution, but it just felt eerie a bit, and it's stress, there's a lot of strikes, so we have a lot of confluences of problems, which most of them I foreseen back in 2019 October 2019, and I didn't foresee exactly the prices increasing in such a manner. I predicted a possibility of inflation, a possibility, of course, or shortages of food. Yeah, shortage because of a third world war. I predicted a third world war, but I didn't predict exactly that prices are going to increase an average of 44.9% and etc. But these were also part of a World War III scenario, which of course we are on the verge of World War III scenario, such as we have perhaps never been, of course, before, such as never been before as it is now, a World War III scenario, which is gonna be now on the confluence of things, man, of the doing on the go, and that's what we're gonna get doing for the ratchet, that's what we're gonna get doing on the go, man. Anyways, it's picked up a bit, I guess. It's picked up again, a bit, I guess. That's what it is, and so we're gonna go on the left, and you get that drill, man. Yeah, I was curious how it looks now, and that's how it looks, man. There's a nice one that needs to be refurbished, and there's a nice one that needs to be refurbished, but it takes work, This all things take a lot of time. I forgot to throw out some garbage, so I'm just gonna put it in the garbage there, in the big one. Wait a minute, I'm gonna put it there. Oh yeah, that's where we're gonna go. So these antagonistic sentiments is, of course, something which we have to address, because of course the DMA, direct military action is something which of course we have to be confluential about. So the DMA, direct military action, That's, I'm not that I'm pro, I'm keeping it neutral in a way. I'm not neutral vis-a-vis my dream, you know, vis-a-vis my dream. It's not a point of neutrality when it comes to my dream, you know. That's not a point of neutrality vis-a-vis to my dream. But my dream is the confluence, of course. Anyways, so I guess welcome to a brave new world in many ways. You know, it's a brave new world, brave new world, brave new world, I guess. And you know, it's something which, let's face it, we are vulnerable, right? Because these things were predictable back then and were predictable perhaps even decades ago, post the dissolution of the Soviet Union, but not in such a manner as we have experienced today, right? But nonetheless, so whatever the case may be, it's with solutions that we gotta focus. And I have to state again, my solutions are for SSD, security, service and defense, and ensuring freedom. Ensuring freedom. Because the insurance of freedom via security, joy, and of course mass mobilization and mass financing, fitness activity, tourism, are something which has to be taken into consideration for the wellness of the population as well. I'm not a psychiatrist, not a psychological analyst. I'm a geopolitical theoretical analyst and theorist, but I'm also a philosopher. My philosophies sometimes are based on action, and intellectual sophistication sometimes, which is overly academic. So that's why in my videos I try to minimize, I try to always self-impose a restrictive behavior in terms of the too much academic intellectual verbosities which I might use, which I might obfuscate certain elements of the population, which is not overly initiated into geopolitics, right? Sometimes you just have to know the overall general arch and premise that we are open and vulnerable due to the fact that we have perhaps discontented diaspora communities in NATO countries, North America, NORAD NATO countries, which due to NATO, not our, because I didn't make the decisions. I was just financially stressed and came out of my depression, and I was suicidal, and I survived COVID and lost friends and finally accepted, yeah, I'm different. I have Asperger's and there's no medication for Asperger's. I just have to be aware that I'm different and that my academic intellectual propensities towards the constant daily routines which involve geopolitical studies and which involve working out, training and exercising, and which involve working out, training, exercising, and which involve working out, training, exercising, and which involve working out, training, exercising, and which make me engage in rock and roll, engage in rock and roll 24/7, are sometimes just necessary to make a summary that we have potential communities that have developed enough resentment to take action, such as the sabotage. That has to be understood fully, you know. The more recent could be certain, as I heard in the news, sleeper cells in Iran. Iranian sleeper cells. No ill will against any community which comes to join us in the kingdom, in the empire. Because we're gonna constitute an Imperial Legion for SSD, security, service and defense, coast to coast, ocean to ocean, the security, service and defense, Imperial Legion, coast to coast, ocean to ocean, and security legion, and that's what we're gonna do, and we're gonna hydrate, HYDRATE, and that's what we're gonna do. Let's go hydrate. Oh yeah. Oh wow. Got that backpack is on the heavy side now, but I think it's more than 50. More than 50, more than 50, more than, definitely more than 44. So just that is to keep in mind that my formulation, and I have to update it because new conflicts have begun since I started writing it after 2017. Most of my writings and work as a philosopher, geopolitical theoretical theorist and artist are going back to 2017. Going back to 2017 and going back to 2017 in the North American complex. The North American complex, which of course we gotta formulate and get all those philosophies to get it on the left side of things as we move towards this empire, the dancing goddess and the dragon kingdom, which is fundamentally a call for a public-private partnership across the North American collective, as we're gonna need to get rid of that border and fundamentally cross and be exploitative about several levels and layers of our concordium, which we're gonna have a new pact, I guess, to calling for the financing of the Dragon Army, the North American People's Imperial SSD Legion, SSD Legion, to get it on the go. And that's what we have to get doing on that, man, because we need to get confluential on the levels of things which we have in the financial matters and philosophical matters, and that's how we gotta get doing on the go with that, and that's how we gotta get doing on the left and on the right and in the middle, and to get it on the things of which we have of nature and civilization complex. And of course all who come to join us, obviously all who come to join us from all over the world, to advance our brothers and sisters formulating, because we don't know how many people are financially stressed and what they're going through and what they live and where they are and the point in life and the struggle, the stress they survived. My fellow citizens, wherever they are, freedom, you gotta be insured. And yes, I use a hug. You hug for me like you never hugged before, black, white, or rainbow. You want to make some loving with me, friends with benefits only, friends with benefits only, friends with benefits only. That's how we are, that's what we're gonna do, and that's how we're gonna have to get doing on that. And we're gonna get it for the left, for the right, and for the butchers, for the bakers, for the nurses, for the doctors, for the firefighters, for the XYZ, for the left, for the right, and for all those involved in the production, distribution of food. That's what we gotta get doing. And sometimes we just gotta be on the left side of things. It's not something which we have as a collective, but it's something that we have as a collective in terms that we have to get the individual and the collective, and the individual and the collective, the individual and the collective, that's what it is with that. And you gotta make sure, you gotta make sure it don't. That's what it is. And so that's what it is. And now we're gonna switch a little bit to the DRT. Super important that I discuss the DRT, and we're gonna get it on the drill, and that's what we're gonna get doing on the love side of things. And that's what is consequently important to implement the DRT for the North American collective, and the CIT for the North American collective primarily, first and foremost, and the DFT, the Democratic Fusion Theory, that Trinity of theories, to be implemented via the fourth dimension, love, because it takes some love in here. Canada, we're gonna fuse Canada, United States, the true north, strong and free. We're gonna add some loving. The king is absent, the king is absent, the king is absent, the king is absent, and the dancing goddess and the dragon kingdom. The king is absent, the king is absent, the king is absent, and of course it's time for the republic, time for the empire, the kingdom, democratic republican kingdom, pro-labor and love, universal revolutionary centrist, secure food, housing, and rebuild the North American ghettos, and implement the DRT. So to finalize the last component of the geopolitical strategy for the 21st century, where we have to implement my Trinity of theories and implement the Operation Northern Scorpio, which can be extended through NATO, but Operation Northern Scorpio, of course, because we have a scorpion which extends and goes all the way from Mexico, all the way from Mexico, all the way from Mexico, all the way to Canada. The only species of scorpion which we do have, comes all the way from Mexico, all the way to Canada. Look at this beautiful park. You can come enjoy here, like my brothers, cousins, they are doing, singing some of that good rock and roll. Good for you. Sing some of that good guitar and get some of that loving, and that's how we gotta be doing. And we gotta fuse Canada, United States, and we gotta implement Operation Northern Scorpio, which I cannot, of course, overly discuss because it's national security matters, and it has to be discussed with the generals of Canada, United States, and all those involved in the dominion of security, public security ministers, and it has to be implemented via my total mobile defense theory, the TMDT, total mobile defense theory, TMDT. When we add the fifth letter to that acronym, the total mobile defense theory, it becomes a system, the TMDT or the TMDTS. When we add the S, that means that my theory is put into practice by transforming it into a system for the total SSD, total security, total service, total defense, and also parallel to implement the new 911 North American Dragon protocols for total security, total service, total defense, which are fundamentally the integration with the public security apparatus with all this civilian population in an integrated manner via the CIT, called confluent to the dancing goddess and the dragon kingdom, the kingdom. Pledge your allegiance to our family. Pledge your allegiance to our family, or not. Pledge your allegiance to our family, or not. And that's how we gotta get that rock and roll with that. And see, we got some water here, so it's something which we gotta be on that confluential side. We gotta get doing on the drill, man. Something we gotta get doing on the drill, and I gotta be saluting those who build. Look at these beautiful towers. Those who build towers across the 63, the 10 provinces, 50 states, and 3 territories. Those who build towers in the 20th century and 21st century, and yesterday, today, and all of tomorrow, who are going to build it. Those are the ones that are going to be saluted today in the rock and roll song, which, of course, we got that confluence there to get it on the drill. And see, that's how we're going to get all these buildings, all these going east, west, north, south across the 63 as we're going to fuse Canada, United States. Look at these. That's how we got electrification. That's how we got electricity. Think about that for a second, for a minute, for a whole day. Meditate on all the brains and the muscle to build. So that's a proof of being the privilege of civilization right here. So these are open for sabotage, and espionage. And we got to get total security, total service, total defense. We got 32 members of NATO. 32 members of NATO, and that's why we gotta get that confluence, and we gotta get on that rock and roll as we go, and we gotta get drilling now, and we're gonna go drilling later, and that's how we're gonna get waiting here a little bit to getting on the side. And imagine all these, see, it's a lot of welding, a lot of brains, and a lot of muscles, and these connect with the Hydro-Quebec plants. Of course, they're connected to the Hydro-Quebec plants. And we gotta build some more. And our electricity is clean, zero pollution, zero emission. It also goes, of course, from Quebec, Montreal. It also goes to all the 5 or 6 states, I believe now. So we need to build more hydroelectric dams. And our electricity, this electricity which is now used for this transmission lines, passing via these transmission lines, salute, also is zero pollution, zero emission. So I gotta give some credit to the builders of the past. I'm a fan, to be honest. I know my geopolitics, but I can put this in a great geopolitical context of the building more hydroelectric dams is gonna be a great geopolitical strategy. Building as a North American collective geopolitical strategy, and it's clean, zero pollution, zero emission. So we gotta build more, and we gotta build some more of that, and so we gotta get going on that, man. Anyway, so more of these, more dams, more hugging, more kissing, more loving. Don't waste your time, don't waste my time, and I didn't waste really time, I'm not gonna say that, all my suffering, strugglings, but today is of course June 25th, and friends with benefits only, we gotta get to work, and friends with benefits only, you know, androgynous, pansexual, dancing goddess, dragon kingdom, empire. Let's lay the foundations and build more, and that's how we're gonna be fundamentally. If you want to be friends with benefits only, that's all we're gonna be. But it's something which we have to be understanding about all the relationships which we are now, how we integral and part, and I being neurodivergent, Aspie, part of this tiny 0.44 community, will to have friends with benefits only. Friends with benefits only, pledge your allegiance to our family, and we need to get the mass financing of the North American Imperial Legion, the Dragon Army, with $718 billion and 93 trillion, 44 trillion for the next 7 years, starting maybe September 11th, 2025 this year. So that's what we need to do. I'm an independent philosopher, geopolitical, theoretical, honest, and theorist, not perfect, with scars, with rah, retrograde amnesia, and calling all willingly loving, pledge your allegiance, our family. Fundamentally, we live in the tough economic, financial times, myself financially stressed also, but if you want to discuss more in depth any of the aforementioned until now theories, propositions, and works in the terms of geopolitical theoretical analysis and philosophy, which is something that I confluently do on the daily basis, just relate and drop a line, and I can do a video or even a series on any given topic relating to the North American Collective or any of my specific geopolitical ideas and theories and protocols thereof. And now it's super important, since it's related also to our geopolitical strategy for the total 21st century integral imperial dominance, to of course implement the DRT, debt refusion theory. First and foremost, we have to implement it. The DRT, we have to implement it. The DRT, we have to be implementing it. So the DRT, debt refusion theory, debt refusion theory, we're gonna have to be implementing the DRT, debt refusion theory. We're gonna have to implement it because we are at a critical point where skyrocketing debt has climbed in the past 5 years. I'm pinpointing the exact event, beginning of COVID, going back to COVID, when I had COVID, and COVID for me was like death, pestilence, and disease. When I had COVID, it was like death, pestilence, and disease. I say death, pestilence, and disease. I know it sounds like a hardcore rock and roll song. Death, pestilence, and disease, all my enemies, please. Rock and roll, God is blessed, please. Avenge sevenfold, like Cain on the Toda. So that's what it is with that, and that's how we're gonna go drilling on that, and that's how we're gonna get the collective on it, and that's how we're gonna get on that drill, you know. So it's something which we do and which we gotta get for doing continuously, you know. So the DRT comes to the rescue, paradoxically, the DRT comes to the rescue. The DRT, debt refusion theory. What is the debt refusion theory, and why do I make the statement that is the only solution? Well, not necessarily the only solution, but something very similar to my DRT theory has to be implemented for the North American collective salvation, because we have reached a point in time, a critical point in time, where the public interest is, of course, is of course problematic. Public interest is problematic because due to the fact that we have record-breaking debt. Me, I don't have credit cards. I have a credit loan of $10,000, but you see more in the past days, past weeks, past months, past years, since more increasingly so since February 2020 when COVID began. There's a record-breaking, and this applies for both Canada and the United States. There's a record-breaking credit card debt accumulation, and the problem parallel and double trouble problem is that the salaries have stagnated while the prices have increased. Even me, I showed you, I'd made the demonstration that what happened My wafers that I used to buy regularly at $1 for 175 grams is still a good deal. They increased from $1 to $1.25, and now they increased again in the past months to $1.39. But consequently, that equivalates for 39% in just such a short amount of time. And I estimate a variation of about the majority of the consumer goods, bread, butter, cheese, my wafers included, cocoa, coffee, at about 44.9%. So close to 50%. Some 10, some 15, some 60, some 70. About that, around about the average. For most North, from a Montreal perspective, because I haven't left the island, of course, of Montreal, which kind of is the equivalent for both Canada and the United States, because I've been following channels which document the increasing cost of living and the prices increasing during COVID for years and years and years. I have some channels which I follow regularly on a weekly basis. And so that's the double problem, you see? And the rent's also increasing. My rent's paid for June, but July is coming. I survived 2024 last year with 11,000 Canadian. I can't believe it, I survived. I'm not gonna go again, but I'm just gonna quick state, Aspies like myself with this neurodivergence, it's unacceptable that 80% of Aspies are unemployed. Hey, look at that beautiful color, so colorful. I just love it, good job, colorfulness, above and below. I love lots of colors. So it is unacceptable, brothers and sisters, that it's 80% unemployment for Aspies. But paradoxically, also my studies in geopolitics have made me that I know. Studied geopolitics have made me that I know a little bit of finance, because when you study geopolitics, you have to have some awareness, some knowledge about finance and the matters of the heart of the financial elements, economic elements, and commercial elements. So we are in deep trouble. We are in deep trouble, we have to say it. Record-breaking debt and credit card debt has skyrocketed, and parallel salaries have stagnated while the prices have increased. Just like I discussed earlier, the price of gas has increased by 10 cents. Yesterday it was 166.9. 2 weeks ago it was 156.9. Before the war, Iran-Israel, 10 days ago, 11 days ago, it was 156. But yesterday 166, it went down by 5 cents. But nonetheless, it's still up from what it was 11 days ago at 156 by 5 cents. 5 cents, at 10 liters, that's 50 cents. 100 liters, that's $5. If you have to spend $5 extra because you filled it up, that can be an added burden. That can be an added burden. That can be an added burden. That's what it is, that's what it is, and that's what it is with the go, and that's what it is for the left, for the right, for the Z, you know. It's something which we have to be implementing, and we have to be knowing, and that's how we gotta get doing on that, and we gotta get doing on those drills, you know. Because it's something which we have to be consequentially, prudently, and be aware that they have to find a solution. And of course, the solution is the DRT. Paradoxically, fundamentally, in essence, my DRT theory, the debt refusion theory, is the solution. Is the solution. You can argue all you want, but there's only something which resembles fundamentally, in essence, my DRT, debt refusion theory, can actually save us from where we are. As I'm passing these residential buildings, I wonder how many people are stressed financially. So many, maybe. Not just me, eh? I had many jobs during COVID, but anyways, it's not about me, it's about me, you, and us. The individual and the collective. So the DRT integrates in my DRT is integrated monetary integration theory. Monetary integration theory is the financial theory which was implemented in the European Union. Monetary integration theory. In the 90s, the Europeans, the Germans, the French, the Italians, they got rid of their old national currencies. In the 90s, they destroyed or annulled their national currencies and their national central banks. The Germans, the Italians, the French no longer have their old national currencies, nor have they their national old central banks. Old central banks. They're old central banks. They no longer have that. They're all central banks. All right? They're all central banks. They no longer have that. They no longer have that. So we're gonna take a beautiful yellow door. Beautiful yellow door. So the DRT integrates monetary integration theory, which is the financial theory which was integrated in the European Union. The MIT, not to be confused with the Massachusetts Institute of Technology. Massachusetts Institute of Technology. So basically we're gonna take all the public and the private debt, my $10,000 debt to the RBC, your $10,000 debt, my debt, your debt, our debt, my debt, your debt, our debt. We're gonna convert it into US dollars. All the public and the private debt. All the public and the private debt. All the public, private debt. Excuse-moi, tu parles français? Sais-tu comment il s'appelle cet arbre-là?
C'est pas un lilac tree? Un arbre lilac?
Ah, c'est ça? C'est un lilas? OK.
Je pense que oui, mais les couleurs ont changé.
I don't know. OK. Oh, ciao. Sometimes I wonder, the trees what's the name of that? Is that like lilac tree? White lilac. White lilac. Lilac blanc, white lilac. Anyways, I was just fascinated by how it was. So, how it was so beautiful, Very white, super white, like very white like snow. So I don't know, maybe it was super white like snow. We gotta get it on the left, right, and then we gotta get it on the So that's what we're gonna get doing. So basically, we're gonna have to formulate consequently to be aware of that. We are in a grave situation, economically, financially. It could happen any day. That is a collapse. It cannot be sustained. The DRT has to be implemented for a new consensus, a new financial accord in the 21st century. So the DRT includes monetary integration theory, which I discussed, which is the financial theory which was implemented in the European Union. Beautiful cluster of flowers in the European Union. So we're gonna take all the public and the private debt, all the private and the public debt, my $10,000, your $10,000, their $10,000, white $10,000, my 10,000, their 10,000, whatever the case may be. Coast to coast, ocean to ocean. Coast to coast, ocean to ocean, coast to coast, ocean to ocean. All that public and private debt, we're going to convert it into US dollars. We're going to convert it into US dollars, into US dollars. All the public and the private debt. My $10,000. Oh, there the crow is. Yeah. We got to do the DRT, and that's my OnlyFans there. How many crows? 4. Love you, love you, love you, love you. I know you know my secrets. Yes. I know, I love you too. Thanks for cheering me on. Legions. Some of these scrolls are the reincarnated souls of the priestesses of ancient Egypt, ancient Rome, and those were some of my generals, my captains from the ancient Roman Empire, ancient Roman legions. The DRT we have to implement for the new 21st century Imperial to build the fort. The DRT, we're going to take all the public and the private debt, all my $10,000 to the RBC, yours, my debt, your debt, coast to coast, ocean to ocean, my $10,000, your $10,000, all the debt, public and private debt, We're going to convert all the public private debt into US dollars. My $10,000, your $10,000, their $10,000. We're going to add it all up. And add it because my DRT theory has to be implemented binationally. Canada, United States. So all the debt, public and private, convert all the Canadian public private debt, including my $10,000 as a citizen, convert it into US dollars, add it with the US dollars, All that money is going to be the initial money supply for a new central bank. We're going to create a new currency based on the value of the US dollar, the UE, U dot universal, E dot exchange, U dot unit, the UE, the universal exchange unit. The universal exchange unit is going to have the value of the US dollar. So the UE, U dot universal, E dot exchange, U dot unit. The universal exchange unit is going to have the value of the US dollars. So we're going to create the UE, the universal exchange unit, and of course the universal exchange unit is going to have the value of the US dollar. So we're going to create the UE, U dot universal, E dot exchange, U dot unit, the UE, the universal exchange unit, the UE, U dot universal, E dot exchange, U dot unit, the universal exchange unit, UE, U dot universal exchange unit, the UE. The universal exchange unit is going to have the value of the US dollar. We're going to cap an interest rate level on all loans thereafter at 10% thereafter. So it's not going to be able to be more than 10%. It's going to be less, but not more. So it can be 9, 10, 11, 3.33, 1.56, 7.18, 1.56, 3.33, 6.1, 4.18, whatever the case may be, you know. So we're going to add it all up, all the debt together. So all that debt, that's going to be the initial money supply for a new central bank. So this new currency is going to be the UE, universal exchange. We're going to cap the interest at 10%. I'm going to go hydrate a bit. 10% UE, U dot universal, E dot exchange, U dot unit. The universal exchange is going to be the new currency. This new currency is going to have a value of the US dollar. By creating this new currency and implementing the DRT, debt refusion theory, we're going to be able to rebuild the North American infrastructure. We're going to be able to mass finance citizens' fitness. We're going to be able to mass build, construct the 44 tunnels in case of a thermonuclear war inspired by the Montreal underground village, the complex, the Cheyenne Mountain Complex, by the Cheyenne Complex, Mountain Complex and Cheyenne Mountain Complex, and also by the Cheyenne Mountain Complex. We're also going to be involved, and paradoxically also those tunnels for continuity of the North American Collectif inspired by the Hamas tunnels, which supposedly are extensive. Hamas tunnels supposedly are extensive, supposedly between 350 kilometers and 500 kilometers underneath the ground. So that is extensive if you think about it. That is really extensive amount of tunnel digging, of tunnels which of course they built. So that is quite consequential, which of course they built a lot of tunnels. So that's what it is with that. And those tunnels are going to help us survive in case of a thermonuclear war. So those tunnels are going to help us survive in case of a thermonuclear war. Those tunnels are going to help us survive. Just going to go hydrate some more. So they're going to help us survive. Paradoxically, of course, I'm no fan of Hamas, but of course, the tunnels have to be a bit, to have an idea of what, because they've been shown in the news, and supposedly they're hundreds of kilometers underneath, right? By what we know, 350, maybe tens of thousands, or maybe thousands of soldiers are still hiding there. Maybe they build them for the long run. So we're gonna build these. Oh yeah. So grateful, thankful for having water here. So we're gonna rebuild the infrastructure. We're gonna finance citizens' fitness, mass finance fitness, and cap the interest rate at 10%. And we're gonna create cooperative institutions, the Dancing Goddess Army, the Dragon Army, the North American Imperial Legion for SSD, Legion SSD, Security Service and Defense Legion only, and gonna rebuild the infrastructure, the bridges, build those tunnels, and mass finance citizens' fitness, mass financing for citizens' tourism, because I wrote a theoretical paper, the Public-Private Partnership Initiative for the mass financing of tourism, to initiate, of course, mass solidarity and mass esprit de corps with the 63, the 10 provinces, 50 states, 3 territories, the new kingdom, which we're going to fuse our resources, Canada and my brothers and sisters in the USA, the population and the space and the resources. We're going to fundamentally dominate geopolitics in the 21st century, but we have to do some love for total security, total service, total defense, and the youth are making some good loving today, I hope. Ah, yeah. Oh, yeah. That felt good. And now we're gonna just apply some sunscreen and switch it to that French, you know, here because we're liable Provence, and gonna take it off. And for a second I thought it was the coach, San Francisco coach, Kyle Shanahan. And we're also gonna build a 4-4-4, and well, me and Donald Trump are gonna have the inauguration match. We're gonna build the North American Imperial People's Coliseum on the Canadian-US border. We're gonna build the biggest ever sports arena complex to be 11 times bigger than where my 49ers lost a few years ago by 3 points to the Ravens. We're gonna build that complex, and we're gonna build the North American People's Imperial Coliseum on the Canadian-US border. Build a 4 by the implementation of the DRT, Debt Fusion Theory. So me and Donald Trump, we're gonna have the inauguration match, and of course we're gonna build the North American, the Forgotten Goddess, because I created my survival to the goddess GODDSS, the North American Imperial Coliseum, and we're gonna build it for the goddess GODDSS, the goddess, Forgotten Goddess Temple, the Forgotten Goddess Temple, the Forgotten Goddess, the GODDSS, the Forgotten Goddess, goddess. I created my surviving COVID, being depressed and suicidal, being attacked by surprise once I had a dislocated right shoulder, went to the Jewish General Hospital, was replaced, and I was put on some meds. For a few days I was like in a coma, and maybe that's why I got that retrograde amnesia, you know. Maybe that's what I got, that retrograde amnesia. I was attacked by surprise a few years ago in the Montreal Metro, and you know, I live hyper vigilant. I live in a World War III mode ever since 2019. I kind of live in a World War III mode, so I lost between 80 and 93 pounds, 80 and 93 pounds, and now that I'm by the river, I guess I'm gonna let my main out by the river, and that's how we're gonna get drilling with that, and we're gonna get on that confluence, and we're gonna get doing on the left and right, and that's how we're gonna get doing for the left, and for the lovers, for the butchers, for the bakers, and for the truckers, firefighters, plumbers, electricians, and the nurses, all those involved in the production, distribution of food. And that's how we gotta get that drilling on the go, and we gotta get on that finance, and we gotta get on those left and right, and pledge your allegiance. We're gonna build the North American People's Imperial Coliseum for Sportus in Perpetuitis. Once we're gonna have sports in perpetuity, we're gonna have that sports in perpetuity, and the inauguration event is gonna be me fighting Donald Trump. And I'm gonna put the backpack back on. I'm gonna close it. I got that food in it, and I got those. That food is well placed there, so not a problem. There we go. Just to put a little bit of sunscreen. Let the main out. Put it back on, and gonna get that exercise with it, and it's always exercising a bit. And yeah, got more than 44 pounds. Gonna work some of those biceps. Gonna work some of those biceps. I'm gonna put it in the backpack, and that's how we're gonna get drilling, man. And we're gonna get drilling on the love, and make sure I got it confidence, and switch to that French, because here we are in La Belle Province, and I gotta get back to my headquarters, you know. Gotta get back to my headquarters, rock and roll with that, and that's what we gotta get doing on the left and on the right and on the go, you know. So something which we gotta aquaplane it, and we gotta give some salutation to my anonymous friend, who wasn't my friend because of the money, because I got this beauty. Thank you for the donation. Well, it was a gift, and I got this also. These I bought secondhand, I think 4, but I gotta auction them for a few $1 million, $1 million each item. My underwear, and that I'm wearing, I guess, the underwear, the shirt was gifted. Look at this beautiful wilderness here. The beautiful wilderness. And that's what it is with the rock and roll. And that's what we're gonna drill, man. And that's what we're gonna build for the Rainbow People's Palace. For my fellow neurodivergent LGBTQ community in parallel, you know, with the pyramid, the rainbow dragon, the pyramid, House of the Dragon, Scarlet Red, and Red Scarlet, and that's how we're gonna get doing on that drill, you know. And we're gonna build the North American People's Imperial Coliseum, you know, for the X, for the Z, for the white, for the all those involved in the production, distribution of food, and that's how we're gonna get drilling on that. And we're gonna get on the left and on the right, and we're gonna get it on those who are involved in the production, distribution of food, and that's how we're gonna get drilling, you know, to get on the goal, you know. Just cold. No feelings, man. What? No. I get cold, man, you know. Yeah, that cold, man. That's what it is. And pledge your allegiance, friends for benefits only. And that's what we gotta get doing on that drill, man. Sun's shining, sun's rising, and look at this beautiful river, Gotta get that cadence. Here we are by the river. Gonna be grateful, thankful, rent paid, electricity bill space, support the dream, the dancing on the Dragon Kingdom. See, the big Montreal Hucon and it's surrounded by this big river. The snake river, you got that beautiful clouds, got some birds and got some sounds, pledge your allegiance, that's a router. All I do is rock and roll, geopolitics, marching, workout, push-ups. Dancing is my favorite sport. I get the dragon, got the priestess, riding on the priestess. Priestess or the dragon, riding me so that you see the sound of it. We gotta build North American, you know, we gotta build for the left and for the right. You know that you gotta sight on the left and on the bite, you know that you gotta spite for the left and for the right. No more living in suicide. No more suicide for me. So that's what we're gonna get doing with drill. That's what we're gonna get doing with that, and we're gonna pledge your allegiance, friends with benefits only. The DRT, that refusion theory, for the collection, for the North American Collective, and the Empire. We're gonna get my brothers and sisters doing a little bit of that sport, and look at those beauties. We can pass by here, I guess we could go. Sometimes, you know, you can just gotta go by the river, and that's why I feel like dropping a few, you know, to just feel the river moving, and that's what we gotta get doing on the left. And for the butchers, bakers, nurses, doctors, the DRT, that refusion theory, here we're going in the wilderness. I'll get that main out, and for the brothers and sisters, boys and girls in blue, nobody's perfect. I also sing for them that rock and roll, and I also sing for my brothers and sisters who do their criminal rehabilitation, and we need to implement the North American Criminal Rehabilitation Act to build a 44 and get that total defense. Look at these beautiful waves here. Hey, beautiful waves. You gotta be careful because you can't really swim here, you know? You can't swim. It's dangerous. So no swimming here. You gotta be aware. It's too dangerous. You can't swim. Don't try because, you know, just go on the side. There's plenty of places where you can dip your feet and just amuse yourself with the water, but just beware of that. See, here you can come sit, but you don't swim here. You be careful. That's, see, it looks like a resort, I know. We see another mountain down there. See the mountain? I think that Mont Saint-Hilaire, Mont Saint-Bruno, we got a lot of mountains here, and we got plenty of mountains, and that's why we gotta go drilling with that, and so we gotta go drilling on the left and on the right, and we gotta get drilling for the left, for the right, and for the butchers, for the nurses, for the doctors, for the firefighters, plumbers, electricians, bakers, butchers, those in the daycare changing some diapers, and you know how it goes, and we gotta get through the sun, and we gotta keep moving, because I don't plan to do more than 5 hours today. More than 5 hours. I don't plan to do more than 5 hours. Because I did 5 yesterday, and last week I finished the spring. We're record breaking, and yesterday I did 5 hours. Then I'm gonna do 5 or 6. But Monday I didn't do. I rested because I guess I overdid it last week. Sometimes you just gotta rest a bit when the body says, you know, you gotta rest and recover, recoup, and then you move into super fitness. As I'm moving now in transitioning into super fitness in the coming days. I guess I'm transitioning into super fitness mode in the coming days. I guess I'm transitioning into super fitness, and I gotta watch because some of those birds attack the head, you know. I already was attacked in the head, and gotta move. Think of them as projectiles, you know. That's projectiles, man. See a nice spot there? You can come relax there or by the water. So pledge your allegiance to our family, friends who benefits only, support the DRT, which I just discussed, the Debt Refusion TV, DRT for the creation of the UE, creation of the Dragon Army, aka North American Imperial SSD, only to function by and for and via the SSD principles, standing for security, service, and defense, and based on my new 911 Total Dragon SSD protocols for the North American Collective. As we're going to fuse, we're going to create a common passport. We're going to create a common passport by the DRT, by the creation of the UE, because we don't need the border that got to go, common passport, and coast to coast, ocean to ocean, coast to coast, ocean to ocean, defense, security, service, coast to coast, ocean to ocean. Also implement the Total Mobile Defense Theory, TM, Total Mobile Defense Theory, which we're going to add an S to the TMDT. It becomes a system, meaning that we have the system in place and implemented. It's going to overlap the current defensive system as we're going to integrate the citizenry and mass finance intra-63 tourism, the 50 states to the 10 provinces and 3 territories and vice versa, for the solidification and certification of the mass partnership, which we're going to invigorate our North American Collective. It takes a public-private partnership to do this, and it takes the emergency protocols for the new Emergency Act for the kingdom, the empire of the 63, as we're going to do and we're going to implement, and that's what we're going to do, and we're going to keep doing, and we're going to get that rock and roll from the east and the west and the north and the south, from the left and the right and the center, coalescing for the kingdom, the empire of the 63. We need to get red uniforms for the Dragon Army, aka North American Imperial SSD Legion, one red maybe for defense, for security black, and for service white, and black for security, and rainbow, another one for monitoring or being a referee, I guess, an Aspie. I'm going to wear the rainbow one because I'm best. Aspies were better to be referees, and whatever the case may be. Anyways, that's what we're going to do, and that's what we're going to get drilling there, and we're going to get on that ghost. My fellow citizen there was lying on the reading some of that book. He was happy, joyous there by the river, and guess we got a little piece of nature here. We need to switch to that French, so you can come here, enjoy, sit, relax, read a book, workout, train, exercise, and means if I read a book, it's going to be probably on Geopolitiks. Français, on est rendu à la rivière. Québécoise, je vous invite à faire de l'entraînement physique. Je commence comme d'habitude avec la gratitude. Puis comme vous avez vu, peut-être pas, peut-être jamais, blablabla, dans le futur, c'est bien sûr, j'ai de la gratitude car j'ai dans mon sac à dos des dons alimentaires, des aliments. C'est pas mal c'est pas vraiment des cocombes, mais c'est des poivrons rouges. J'ai pris pour moi et pour mon ami anonyme, c'est des poires. Vous avez tantôt la vidéo que j'ai mangé, puis c'est la première fois que j'ai mangé la poire. C'est cette saison-là. J'ai jamais mangé la poire la saison de 2025. Fait que j'ai la gratitude pour ceux qui ont fait le don. Puis bien sûr, j'ai laissé bien de la nourriture pour d'autres gens, pour qu'ils s'en nourrissent au point de vue d'avoir le frigidaire où qu'on peut se nourrir. C'est quelque chose que c'est un grand privilège dans mon quartier à Notre-Dame-de-Grâce pour le faire ici. Que je suis sorti, bien sûr, l'avoir sorti, bien sûr, de l'embarras qui est à la rivière, bien sûr, pour le faire du pas par pas. Puis je vous encourage à l'entraînement physique. C'est quelque chose, bien sûr, que je le fasse dans le domaine d'avoir que je suis moi-même un individu différent. La majorité des gens, je vis avec l'Asperger. Vous savez que je le dis, encore une fois, je veux juste faire une petite parenthèse, une petite révision. C'est quoi l'Asperger? Pour pas que vous en pensez que je suis en détresse ou en crise, ou la seule crise, le seul stress financièrement que j'ai en ce moment, c'est économique, financier. Puis vous savez, moi, si je me sens pas bien, je le dis, même quand c'est les gens qui me demandent. C'est des choses que nous, les Aspergers, des fois, tu sais, on dit comment on se ressent dans le point de convergence. Bien sûr que ça fait, bien sûr, dans l'affaire de l'histoire, pour avoir de l'envoûtement, bien sûr, pour être dans une convergence, de pas trop être trop passer de temps pour expliquer, bien sûr, que c'est un événement que je dois moi-même le dire puis le faire. Bien sûr, c'est une condition de neurodivergence. Et cette condition de neurodivergence, ça fait bien sûr que j'ai moi-même une histoire, bien sûr, pour le faire dans cette historique, d'avoir des événements de la géopolitique. C'est mon intérêt spécial. Puis c'est ça que je fais, bien sûr, dans ce point de convergence de cette histoire, que ce point de convergence de l'histoire, d'avoir des événements, bien sûr, qui sont vis-à-vis l'interprétation des neurotypiques, vis-à-vis les citoyens qui sont neurotypiques, comme vous, les 99,56%, les 56%, bien sûr, vous êtes les neurotypiques et nous, vis-à-vis les 0,44%, les 0,44%, les 0,44% pour le monde. Les 0,44%. Fait que nous, c'est aussi vis-à-vis quelque chose, bien sûr, qu'on a dans cette condition d'avoir cette condition de neurodivergence qu'on est rendu, bien sûr, aujourd'hui. C'est moi-même, je dois toujours bâtir, expliquer, puis bâtir certains ponts. Si je bâtis pas des ponts, je dois bâtir des ponts parce que c'est pas une condition d'avoir une inquiétude ou avoir, bien sûr, des angoisses ou avoir bien sûr des éléments qui peuvent causer une détresse, qui peuvent nuire à certains individus, Et bien sûr, qui peuvent nuire à certains individus, c'est ces choses-là, bien sûr, qui vont être dans le domaine de la circonférence où qu'on est aujourd'hui, que moi-même je fais la lecture, que je fais bien sûr la lecture, d'avoir ce point de vue différent. Puis c'est pas un point de vue vraiment, c'est juste que notre cerveau est différent. Fait qu'il n'y a pas de médicaments qui peuvent traiter cette condition de neurodivergence qui est l'Asperger's. Fait que des fois, tu sais, j'ai de la misère à m'exprimer, à utiliser des mots qui ne sont pas reliés à point de vue académique, intellectuel ou un peu philosophique. Si c'est pas relié au rock'n'roll ou à la géopolitique. Qu'est-ce que j'essaie de dire, c'est que nous, les Asperger's, on a de la misère dans certains choses de la vie sociale, la communication non verbale, des fois la communication, la manière qu'on s'exprime, des fois qu'on communique, c'est bizarre. Fait que je dois toujours expliquer puis dire que c'est à cause de l'Asperger's, l'autisme mouvement fonctionnel, que cette différence peut causer certaines angoisses, inquiétudes, ou on peut avoir des malcompréhensions, ne pas se comprendre bien comme il le faut, tu sais. C'est sûr que quand ça vient à la géopolitique, ça c'est mon domaine. Ça c'est mon royaume, ça c'est mon intérêt spécial. Aussi connu comme intérêt obsessif, c'est une belle rivière qui entoure la métropole, puis quand je chante du rock'n'roll, je suis super dedans. Puis bien sûr que je suis super dedans moi-même, c'est quelque chose qui nous intéresse d'un point de vue d'avoir certaines convergences qui ne sont pas reliées, bien sûr, à l'Asperger's, mais qui sont reliées à faire des ententes ou à faire comme un compromis social, tu sais, parce que je dois toujours bâtir un pont. Mais ce pont-là, des fois, ça prend les deux côtés, puis ça prend qu'on peut s'entendre, qu'on peut travailler ensemble en tant que souverain pour la justice, la liberté, puis le collectif, puis l'individu, la liberté, etc., vis-à-vis moi en tant que neurodivergent et vous qui êtes neurotypique. Fait que, pour pas être trop académique, intellectuel, notre cerveau il est différent. Il y a des mutations dans le cerveau au niveau microscopique. Fait que nous, notre vie en tant qu'Asperger's, encore je fais partie de cette petite minorité à même pas 1%, là, même pas la moitié d'un pourcentage, c'est 0,44%. C'est 0,44%, c'est belle ça. Wow! Hey, c'est des bois, sont belles, anyway. Regarde ça. Hey, merci d'avoir planté ça, un travail public. C'est quand même, leur nom s'en vient pas, mais en latin peut-être pluralis du label provincis. Je leur donne un nom en latin parce que je connais un peu le latin, là, mais vis-à-vis ces choses de convergence, c'est des choses, bien sûr, qu'il faut que moi-même, je le fasse moi-même dans ce point de convergence. Fait que, en tant qu'analyste et théoricien en géopolitique, c'est la chose, bien sûr, que moi-même, je suis bon à ces choses-là. Les autres choses, je suis pas bon. Je suis pourri, je suis comme ça, je dois avoir du soutien, mais pas beaucoup de soutien, par exemple. Parce que c'est pas une maladie mentale, l'Asperger's. C'est pas une maladie mentale. C'est pas une maladie mentale. C'est une condition de neurodivergence, de neurodivergence, de l'affaire d'avoir des choses, de cette neurodivergence qui fait qu'on est différent. Mais cette différence n'est pas antagoniste. N'est pas antagoniste. C'est ça que vous devrez comprendre, les neurotypiques, que vous constituez les 99,56%. Puis même que moi-même, j'aime pas la violence, hein. J'aime pas la violence, j'aime pas la violence, pas du tout, j'aime pas la violence. Je l'ai vécu, je me suis fait attaquer par surprise. Là, un couple d'années, je suis tombé, je connais ma tête, j'avais le bras, l'épaule droit disloqué, j'étais bien sûr. Ouais, je suis allé à l'hôpital général juif, les docteurs me l'ont recraqué en place. Recraqué en place, recraqué en place, tu sais, recraqué en place. Fait qu'il... Ça frustre. Les illusions, man. Les illusions. Les illusions, man. Fait que, tu sais, c'est pas un point antagoniste. C'est ça que vous devez avoir, vous rassurer. Moi, je suis pas antagoniste ou neurotypique, pas du tout. J'ai pas d'antagonisme en dedans de moi. J'ai souffert moi-même, j'ai eu la dépression. Mais qu'est-ce qui est inacceptable? Puis ça, il faut trouver des solutions. C'est que 80% des Asperger's, comme moi-même, là, puis en faisant partie d'une petite communauté, c'est 80%, bien sûr, 80%, là, 80% là, de sans-emploi. Taux de sans-emploi, taux de sans-emploi, taux de sans-emploi. Taux de sans-emploi, taux de sans-emploi. Le taux de sans-emploi est à 80%. 80%. « 80%. Le taux de chômage, là, de sans-emploi chez les Aspie, moi-même, j'ai eu bien de l'emploi. La majorité des Aspie, on a bien de l'emploi, bien sûr, qu'on s'y trouve, bien sûr. Qu'on s'y trouve à 80% là, de ce niveau de sans-emploi. C'est énorme, là. C'est inacceptable de ce point de vue-là. Fait que ça, c'est inacceptable. Mais je suis pas antagoniste. Parce que moi-même, ça faisait bien des années qu'on m'avait diagnostiqué, puis qu'on m'avait dit, ben, t'as l'Asperger's, t'es l'autiste, t'as hautement fonctionnel, t'as l'Asperger's, bien sûr. T'as l'Asperger's. Et à cause de l'Asperger's, je vois le monde différemment. Fait que mes routines, mon quotidien, attention quand vous traversez, parce que des fois, ils viennent vite, là, ici. Des fois, je vois embrouiller, j'ai eu une prescription, là. J'ai une prescription pour des lunettes, là, mais moi, je suis super concentré, bien sûr, pour le faire dans ce point de différence, d'avoir vécu, bien sûr, d'avoir ce point de différence, d'avoir de la compréhension pour être compris, puis pas pour être compris, mais pour être accepté, mais puis pour que je vis ma vie. Puis j'ai de quoi contribuer, c'est ça que... Mais je contribue dans le rock'n'roll, l'entraînement physique. J'ai créé mon propre système d'entraînement physique en 2019. Mais en géopolitique, c'est 24/24 l'analyse de la théorie en géopolitique. Si vous rentrez dans ce royaume, donc on va rentrer bientôt pour le collectif de l'Amérique du Nord, pour le collectif de l'Amérique du Nord, pour le collectif de l'Amérique du Nord, pour le collectif de l'Amérique du Nord. C'est quelque chose, bien sûr, que je fais au quotidien. C'est quelque chose que je dois le faire moi-même. Tu sais, parce que dans le quotidien, bien sûr, c'est une chose du quotidien qu'il faut qu'on se fasse. Pas justement justice, mais qu'on se fasse, qu'il y ait une appréciation, comme dans le livre que mon ami anonyme m'avait donné, merci, ça m'a fait beaucoup savoir de comment je suis différent, puis comment je peux être vulnérable en tant qu'Asperger. J'ai eu des vulnérabilités qu'il va falloir que je travaille continuellement, que j'ai commencé à travailler à cause de ce livre-là, que c'est sur l'Asperger, parce que ça faisait dans la COVID que je l'ai accepté, que je suis différent. Mais pour vous dire, regarde, c'est pas une condition de neurodivergence, c'est pas une condition de neurodivergence que c'est pas une condition de neurodivergence. C'est pas une condition de neurodivergence, c'est une condition de... C'est une condition de neurodivergence. C'est pas une condition de maladie mentale. C'est une condition de neurodivergence. C'est pas une maladie mentale. C'est pas une maladie mentale. C'est pas une maladie pantoute. C'est une condition de neurodivergence. Fait que dans cette condition de neurodivergence se trouvent certaines choses qui sont hors normes. La manière qu'on bouge, des fois on s'approche tellement proche des concitoyens, tu sais. On s'approche tellement proche des concitoyens. De l'espace personnel, tu sais, on a de la misère à respecter cet espace personnel. Dans cet espace personnel, bien sûr, c'est quelque chose qu'on doit savoir, même nous, aujourd'hui au quotidien, pour faire toujours un travail, une belle place pour faire du repos, pour bien sûr faire d'autres choses. Fait que dans cette constance, parce qu'il n'y a pas de médicament pour l'Asperger's, il faut toujours que j'y travaille moi-même. Fait que ce travail se trouve toujours pour expliquer qu'est-ce que c'est l'Asperger's, puis qu'est-ce que c'est l'autisme hautement fonctionnel, puis qu'est-ce qui n'est pas l'autisme hautement fonctionnel. C'est des choses, bien sûr, que moi, je dois le dire moi-même, dans ce point de convergence, puis dans ce point aussi que je suis maintenant, dans le point d'avoir un niveau de vie que je suis stressé moi-même, C'est dans ces choses maintenant que je vis moi-même, tu sais. Ben, le stress financier. Puis bien sûr, 80%, bien sûr, de ce stress financier, c'est un stress financier qui n'est pas... qui est dû à l'Asperger's. Bien sûr, j'ai eu bien de l'emploi, que j'ai aimé, puis j'ai fait des choses là qui sont différentes, de la manière différente. Fait que ces choses-là, bien sûr, on doit le mettre, on doit le voir, la réalité, qu'est-ce que c'est, puis qu'est-ce que c'est pas l'Asperger's, qu'est-ce que c'est, puis qu'est-ce que c'est pas l'Asperger's. Fait que c'est des choses comme ça qu'il faut se dire toujours et continuellement, que c'est pas une maladie mentale, c'est une condition de neurodivergence. Et moi, je vois les choses différemment. Moi, maintenant, je suis content, je suis jovial, je suis de bonne humeur. Quand je m'entraîne, quand je fais du rock'n'roll, oui, je peux être bizarre dans la conversation. Des fois, on a tendance, puis j'ai la perte de mémoire, l'amnésie rétrograde, parce que je l'ai vécu moi-même, tu sais. C'est possible qu'à cause d'où j'habitais, ou le trompe, ou que je me suis fait attaquer par surprise, ou bien sûr d'autres choses que j'ai faites moi-même, de la circonstance d'avoir des choses, bien sûr, pour l'avoir dans la circonstance. C'est des choses comme ça, bien sûr, qu'il faut le dire. Tu sais? Puis des fois, on peut dire des choses directement, tu sais. Directement. Pas parce qu'on veut offenser, c'est juste que notre cerveau est différent. Fait que, comme on décrit souvent les Asperger's, on est sans filtre. On est sans filtre. Comme je vous donne un exemple concret, là, qui n'est pas... quelqu'un demande comment tu vas. Moi, ça va pas bien, je vais le dire. Je vais comme ci, comme ça, pas si bien. C'est parce que, tu sais, la norme de la société, on peut toujours dire, OK, je suis correct, mais si je suis pas correct, je vais le dire. Ben, si vous avez quelque chose à m'offrir, vous m'offrez quelque chose, sinon, non, that's it, that's all. Offrez rien. C'est correct. J'ai survécu, j'ai plein de cicatrices, j'ai survécu, je suis androgyne pansexuel, il n'y a pas de problème, je suis un individu souverain. J'y crois, j'ai un sens de la justice, je suis pas parfait, j'aime ça, l'amour, faire l'amour, si vous êtes homme-femme, noir et blanc, mais vous voulez me faire de l'amour. Je crois que je sois à 18 ans, là, comme à SQDC quand vous achetez le cannabis et tout ça. Je veux rien savoir des autres choses, des amis avec bénéfice seulement. Puis c'est mon travail vis-à-vis mon travail en géopolitique qui est le plus important, surtout depuis 2019. Parce que bien sûr, j'ai prévu moi-même la situation qui se déroule en ce moment, tu sais, qui se déroule en ce moment dans ces situations de la géopolitique, hein, où se trouve en ce moment, bien sûr, de la géopolitique, hein, en ce moment, qui se trouve de la géopolitique actuelle. Puis il faut être très direct des fois dans ces choses-là. Puis je vais dire maintenant, parce que j'arrête avec l'Asperger's, qu'est-ce que c'est pas, je vais rentrer bien sûr dans qu'est-ce que on doit faire en tant qu'une stratégie de la géopolitique. Parce que ça, c'est mon royaume, ça, c'est mon domaine. Si vous rentrez dans la géopolitique, nous, les Asperger's, on a une routine, rituel. Moi-même, vous voyez, depuis des années, je fais l'entraînement physique, je m'entraîne, je fais l'analyse de la théorie en géopolitique. Je suis un philosophe, un artiste, un athlète, un analyste théoricien en géopolitique. indépendant. Un mystique, je crois à la réincarnation, mais dans d'autres vies, j'étais né homme, j'étais né femme, homme, femme, homme, femme, femme, homme. Maintenant, mais vous êtes affaire avec monsieur, madame, le dragon arc-en-ciel. Aussi connu comme la prêtresse. Dans le dragon arc-en-ciel, il y a une femme, la prêtresse. Puis oui, je suis moitié-moitié. Puis je fais partie de la communauté de neurodivergence, j'ai l'Asperger's, puis je fais partie de la communauté des LGBTQ aussi. Mais ça m'empêche pas de vivre. Je vis avec mes cicatrices, la perte de mémoire. J'ai de la misère à me souvenir de ma vie avant 2015-2014. Comme j'ai de la misère à accéder des mémoires. J'ai vécu, j'étais attaqué par surprise, j'étais allé à l'hôpital juif, puis j'étais ensanglé tout en sang. Là, puis j'ai vécu ça, j'ai vécu plusieurs attaques, puis d'autres choses. Fait que là, je suis correct, je suis bon, je suis bonne moche. J'aime pas la violence, mais je suis hyper vigilant. Je suis hyper vigilant. Puis des fois, tu sais, à cause de l'Asperger, j'ai perdu bien l'emploi. C'est 80% là, des Asperger. On est une petite communauté là, de 0,44%, même pas 1%, mais le taux de chômage de sans emploi est à 80%. C'est inacceptable. Là. Puis parallèlement, qu'est-ce qui est inacceptable aussi? Bien, ça, je l'ai vécu, la dépression puis être suicidaire, là, 9 fois plus. 9 fois plus. 9 fois plus chez les Aspie. Chez les Aspergers, le taux de suicide puis de dépression, il est 9 fois plus. Il est 9 fois plus. 9 fois plus. 9 fois plus. Parallèlement, le taux de dépression puis de sans-emploi, 9 fois et 11 fois. C'est grave. Puis je l'ai vécu les deux. Maintenant, je suis sans emploi, mais j'attends pour le mois de juillet. Puis je suis content, j'ai payé. Puis j'ai mon sac à dos rempli de... c'est pas la fraîcheur, là, mais c'est des produits qui sont quand même comestibles dans les, que je vais dire, 48 heures là, qui suivent, là, depuis que je les ai pris tantôt dans le frigidaire. Fait que j'ai de la gratitude pour que quelqu'un a contribué, XYZ, un citoyen et citoyenne, qui aille contribuer à ma sécurité alimentaire. Parce qu'avec la sécurité alimentaire, je vais continuer à faire ce que je fais au quotidien, puis ce que je fais depuis des années. C'est l'analyse et théorie en géopolitique. Nous, les Aspie, on a des intérêts spéciaux, puis moi-même, c'est la trinité d'intérêts spéciaux, aussi connus comme obsessifs, mais ça ne rend pas justice de dire obsessif, parce que oui, les Aspie, les Aspergers, on peut être super intenses, super dedans, super concentrés quand on fait ces intérêts spéciaux, mais parallèlement, on peut négliger d'autres choses. Fait que c'est là qu'il y a un problème aussi pour cette compréhension. Fait que moi, quand je fais des analyses et théories de révision de la géopolitique, des heures par jour, le matin, le soir, l'après-midi, même maintenant dans ma tête, c'est constamment la géopolitique. C'est constamment la géopolitique, le rock'n'roll, l'entraînement physique. Comprenez? C'est mes intérêts spéciaux, ça préoccupe avec une routine, un rituel, mon quotidien. Une routine, un rituel, mon quotidien. Fait que c'est bien sûr dans cette collectif de civilisation de l'Amérique du Nord où on se retrouve, les Québécois et Québécoises, proches de la Troisième Guerre mondiale, puis je dois le dire, dans mon travail, donc je prends beaucoup de fierté. Peut-être des fois c'est académique, intellectuel, trop philosophique un peu, mes théories, puis mes thèses, puis mes initiatives, j'essaie de les expliquer le plus possible, simplement possible. J'ai prévu qu'est-ce qui se passe maintenant. J'ai la preuve, j'ai la vidéo en ligne, j'ai prévu qu'il y aura une conflagration internationale, soit une Troisième Guerre mondiale, en 2019. En octobre, en novembre 2019. Octobre, novembre 2019. En octobre, novembre 2019. En octobre, novembre 2019, j'ai prévu qu'il y aura une conflagration internationale. Et bien sûr que j'ai prévu moi-même cette conflagration, j'ai quand même une couple de solutions qui se retrouvent vis-à-vis mon rêve, le royaume de la déesse, le trône qui danse, qui est fondamentalement un appel à un partenariat public-privé. Un partenariat public-privé, un PPP, partenariat public-privé vis-à-vis les accords qui se trouvent pour aujourd'hui puis le futur, soit l'implémentation aussitôt possible de ma trinité de théories, la théorie d'intégration citoyenne, la théorie de la refusion de la dette et la théorie des fusions démocratiques. Surtout la TRD, théorie de la refusion de la dette, comme je l'ai discuté tantôt, il faut qu'on fasse aussitôt possible parce qu'on est dans un mode de crise. On est à la veille d'avoir une crise financière, mes chers. Pour être proche de la rivière, on est à la veille d'avoir une crise des finances publiques ainsi que privées parce qu'on a un record. On est rendu à un record de combien de dettes. Il y a un surendettement. Les cartes de crédit, c'est rendu un surendettement énorme. Un surendettement énorme. Ça a augmenté, puis le trouble financier, économique, commercial pour la majorité vaste des citoyens du Québec, du Canada, puis j'inclus les États-Unis parce que mes analyses et théories en géopolitique sont intégralement pour fusionner les États-Unis avec le Canada et les États-Unis, le Québec et les États-Unis. le Québec et les États-Unis ensemble dans ce que j'appelle un complexe de partenariat public-privé pour le collectif de civilisation de l'Amérique du Nord, pour le collectif de civilisation de l'Amérique du Nord, dans ce nouveau collectif où qu'on se retrouve, puis où qu'on doit faire quand même des grands compromis. Donc, on a fait le grand compromis linguistique pour la continuité de la paix et de l'harmonie dans le collectif de l'Amérique du Nord. Qu'est-ce que j'appelle le grand compromis linguistique pour le collectif de l'Amérique du Nord, pour la continuité de la paix et de l'harmonie dans le et intègre du collectif de l'Amérique du Nord. Fait que c'est des choses, bien sûr, que moi-même, je dois le faire dans ce point de convergence pour les avoir aujourd'hui où que je suis rendu, aujourd'hui vis-à-vis tout, moi en tant qu'individu, tu sais, en tant qu'individu, pour être dans ce point de convergence de l'individu et du collectif. Puis j'aime ça voir les gens qui s'entraînent. Faites bien, du bon entraînement physique. Ça fait toujours du bien, puis j'ai commencé depuis bien des années pour faire bien sûr appel à des gens qui font bien sûr pour que les gens s'entraînent. Et je vois qu'il y a bien du monde, même s'il est comme le 6e jour de la canicule, 6e jour de la canicule, dans ce point de convergence où qu'on est rendu aujourd'hui, d'avoir, tu sais, un espoir. Puis l'entraînement physique, moi j'ai commencé ça en 2017. Avant ça, j'étais en dépression suicidaire. Et bien sûr, avec la dépression puis le suicidaire, bien sûr, ça m'a fait bien sûr ce point de convergence puis de communication. Donc moi-même, je suis rendu à avoir bien sûr dans la théorie intégrale, d'avoir un compromis, d'avoir de la situation où qu'on est rendu aujourd'hui. Hein. Fait que quand j'étais en dépression, j'étais suicidaire. Qu'est-ce qui m'a fait sortir de ma dépression? Mais c'était traverser le Canada de côte à côte, traverser le Canada de côte à côte. Et c'est quelque chose, bien sûr, qu'il faut qu'on y aille, bien sûr, quelque chose qu'il faut qu'on y aille, bien sûr, dans la communication, bien sûr, on doit le dire, bien sûr, dans ce point que moi-même, j'ai fait de la grosse transformation, plutôt, que j'étais en dépression, puis suicidaire, puis bien sûr, qu'est-ce qui m'a fait, bien sûr, sortir de ma dépression puis être suicidaire, c'est bien sûr avoir traversé le Canada de côte à côte. En 2017, en septembre, puis en août, je suis allé en Colombie-Britannique, je suis allé en Colombie-Britannique en août, bien sûr, Vancouver. Après ça, en septembre, je suis allé, bien sûr, en septembre, je suis allé à l'autre bout du Canada. Fait que de côte à côte, je suis allé de côte à côte, dans l'autre bout, bien sûr que j'ai fait moi-même sortir Qu'est-ce qui m'a fait sortir de la dépression, puis qu'est-ce qui m'a fait établir un esprit de corps solide, c'est traverser le Canada de côte à côte. C'était un événement qui m'a complètement changé ma vie. Pour ça, j'ai écrit des documents pour l'initiative pour financer l'entraînement physique de côte à côte, puis intègre dans les 10 provinces, 50 États, puis 3 territoires, parce qu'il faut qu'on se fusionne pour la dominion du collectif de l'Amérique du Nord, l'Empire, le royaume de la déesse et du dragon qui danse. C'est fondamentalement un rêve qui fait appel à un partenariat public-privé pour avoir dans ce point de convergence de la lecture d'où qu'on est rendu aujourd'hui pour vous discuter de la géopolitique. Mais l'événement qui a changé ma vie, j'étais en dépression suicidaire, c'est traverser le Canada. Fait que je fais appel pour financer les gens au tourisme, parce que ça fait du bien. Là. J'ai établi un esprit de corps où je considère comme ma famille, les Québécois et Québécoises. Comme je l'ai dit, j'ai pas d'antagonisme envers les neurotypiques. Il faut qu'on travaille ensemble, je veux pas. Je dois vivre avec ce que je suis différent, mais j'ai de quoi contribuer. Puis quand ça vient à la géopolitique, oubliez avec blablabla, ça fait des années que je suis ouvert, là. Pansexuel, il n'y a pas de problème depuis bien des années, puis des choses comme ça, mais c'est ma sexualité bizarre un peu, mais si vous êtes femme, homme, noir, blanc, arc-en-ciel, pas de problème, des amis avec VFX, mais il faut que vous ayez 18 ans et plus. C'est juste ça. 18 ans et plus, consentement, hygiène, puis blablabla, pas besoin de m'espionner le service secret de la Russie ni de la Chine. J'aime ça le sadomasochisme, un peu de sadomasochisme, tout ça, mais ça n'enlève pas que je peux être dragon qui pitche du feu pour la défense, la sécurité et le service de ma famille, le Québec, le Canada, puis le collectif de l'Amérique du Nord, puis tous ceux qui viennent nous rejoindre, évidemment. Il faut que je fasse, moi aussi, un effort pour ceux qui viennent nous rejoindre. Le plus que je puisse, en tant qu'individu, puis en tant que mes relations, puis moi, en tant qu'individu, dans le collectif, parce qu'on est des individus dans le collectif. Puis c'est la liberté individuelle sanctifiée, puis en sécurité avec le collectif. C'est ça mon rêve pour le futur, le 21e siècle, dans ces temps de crise. Fait que la géopolitique, j'ai prévu qu'est-ce qui se passe. J'ai même créé, bien sûr, un système d'entraînement physique. Vous savez comment ça s'appelle, ces choses-là? Ça s'appelle, bien sûr, pas des ratons laveurs, ni des chats, ni des écureuils, ni des lapins. Comment ça s'appelle? C'est des berceaux, non? C'est pas des berceaux. Je vous laisse deviner. Vous êtes une gang, une légion, des oiseaux. Comment vous appelez? Et vous êtes bien en train de manger, tu beau manger, tu beau manger. C'est des choses comme ça, mais c'est des choses comme ça, bien sûr, dans le faire d'avoir de la faisance pour le faire, bien sûr. Oh, j'adore cette place-là ici. Je vais juste m'hydrater un peu. Puis je vais discuter de la TRD parce que c'est super important que je discute de la TRD. C'est tellement cool, ça, un cycle de nettoyage. Et merci, ça, c'est vraiment nice. Ça se nettoie tout seul. Fait que c'est bon pour l'hygiène. C'est rare quand même. Je me demande comment ils l'ont fait. C'est-tu fait au Québec, au Canada? Ou il y a bien de la technologie dedans. C'est quand même cool, je trouve. Futuriste un peu, j'aime ça. Mais s'il vous plaît, ne barbouillez pas en dedans. J'ai vu l'autre fois, vous avez barbouillé là. C'était déjà assez beau orange de même, là, mais s'il vous plaît, ne pas faire de graffiti sur la porte ou en dedans. Juste une petite demande citoyenne, là. Puis vous voyez, c'est un cycle de nettoyage, ça se nettoie. Fait. Excusez-moi, madame, parlez-vous français? Oui. Vous attendez après?
Non, j'attends pas. J'ai fini. Non, j'ai été déjà.
OK. Merci. Moi, je peux pas parce que ça se nettoie maintenant.
Ouais, non, je sais.
Ouais, c'est un...
Oui, c'est sûr. Il faut attendre que ce soit vert. Libre.
Exact, ça soit libre, ouais. Ah, j'y vais pas de toute manière.
Ouais.
Fait que c'est ça l'Asperger, c'est la différence de comment qu'on voit le monde. Comment qu'on est rendu à voir le monde dans une situation où on connaît bien sûr, dans ce faire de la manière où on connaît bien sûr de la convergence. Et moi-même, en tant que différence, que je suis différent, je le sais, puis je prends note, puis je dois faire un effort. Mais là, oubliez tout ça, mais prenez en compte que l'intérêt spécial chez les Asperger, lisez un livre sur l'Asperger, regardez sur Internet un peu l'Asperger. L'intérêt spécial chez nous, chez moi, c'est la géopolitique. Fait que dans cette géopolitique, dans la théorie et l'intégration de la géopolitique, c'est quelque chose, bien sûr, qu'il faut qu'on fasse nous-mêmes. Fait que dans la géopolitique, c'est mon royaume. J'ai prévu qu'est-ce qui se passe maintenant en 2019. 2019. Fait que j'ai prévu ça. Fait que j'ai prévu qu'est-ce qui se passe maintenant en 2019. J'ai la preuve, j'ai la vidéo en ligne. D'une manière générale, là, pas toutes les bien sûr détails qui se sont passés depuis 2019. Puis je dis que j'ai survécu la COVID aussi. Puis bien sûr, mon rêve de bâtir le royaume. La déesse et du dragon qui danse, le temple de la déesse et du dragon qui danse avec le palais du peuple impérial de l'Amérique du Nord, avec le palais du peuple de l'Amérique du Nord, bien sûr, c'est quelque chose, bien sûr, qui sont comme citoyens et citoyennes ici, qui sont dans le point de convergence, puis bien sûr, dans la solution qu'il faut qu'on se trouve, bien sûr, d'avoir un point de convergence où qu'on est rendu ici pour le faire, bien sûr, dans ce point de convergence pour le faire de la manière qu'on puisse le faire. De la manière qu'on puisse le faire. Parce qu'il faut qu'on fasse plusieurs choses pour la stratégie de la géopolitique, puis pour les finances qu'on est rendu aujourd'hui, en termes d'avoir une crise. C'est une crise financière énorme. Un taux record d'intérêt qui se rajoute, bien sûr, à une... Puis ça, je parle pour le Canada et les États-Unis, le Québec, les États-Unis ensemble. Le Québec, les États-Unis ensemble, ça. Je m'adresse au Québec, s'il vous plaît, ne laissez pas de canettes de même. Mettez ça, à moins que je vous donne le bénéfice du doute, vous êtes quelque part ici, là, puis vous êtes, tu sais, mais mettez ça dans recyclage, à moins que quelqu'un les prenne, je sais bien, là, mais je les mets ça pour ça, puis c'est des choses, bien sûr, qu'il faut que je fasse dans ce point de convergence pour être, dans ce point de la politique, pour être rendu aujourd'hui, pour dire que, bien sûr, c'est La TRD qu'il faut faire l'implémentation de la théorie de la refusion de la dette, théorie de la refusion de la dette. La théorie de la refusion de la dette. La théorie de la refusion de la dette, c'est quelque chose de bien sûr qu'il faut qu'on se passe nous aussi dans le point de convergence d'où qu'on est rendu aujourd'hui. Fait que la TRD, dans la TRD, théorie de la refusion de la dette, c'est la solution. Parce qu'on est rendu à avoir tellement un taux d'intérêt, mais c'est pas exactement le taux d'intérêt, bien sûr, c'est le combien. C'est le combien de dettes qu'on est rendu avec des cartes de crédit. Même maintenant, il y a du monde qui achète avec des cartes de crédit. Maintenant, il y a du monde qui dépense avec des cartes de crédit. Fait que pour le Québec, le Canada, il y a un record de cartes de crédit. Fait que combien de cartes de crédit, là, aujourd'hui, il se trouve qu'on est rendu à un record depuis des jours, les jours qui viennent passer, bien sûr, les jours qui viennent passer, bien sûr, les mois qui viennent passer, bien sûr, les jours qui viennent passer, les années qui viennent passer. Ça fait toujours plus d'endettement. Plus d'endettement. Pour le Québec, le Canada, les statistiques sont pareilles. Le problème, un double problème, c'est qu'il y a un taux d'augmentation du coût de la vie. Le coût de la vie s'augmente. Le prix du gaz, comme je disais tantôt, en anglais, je dis des gaufres que j'ai acheté à 1$, la 3,5, ça a sauté à 1,25, puis là, finalement, c'est rendu à 1,39. Bien, 39 cents pour 1$, c'est 39%. 39%, c'est 39%. Fait que c'est juste ces choses-là qu'il faut tenir en compte, tu sais, dans le partenariat public-privé qui sont là-bas. Puis c'est des choses, bien sûr, qu'il faut que ça soit dans le finance qui s'est rendu dans le partenariat public-privé. Donc, la TRD, il faut qu'on fasse l'implémentation. La TRD, théorie de la refusion de la dette, il faut qu'on fasse l'implémentation, vous comprenez? Parce qu'on est en veille d'avoir un effondrement des finances. C'est possible que demain, ça commence. Les gens sont surendettés. Il y a un surendettement, puis le coût de la vie, ça continue d'augmenter. Ça continue d'augmenter, le coût de la vie. Ça continue d'augmenter. C'est ça le problème. Le coût de la vie continue d'augmenter. C'est la continuité de l'augmentation du coût de la vie. Vous comprenez? C'est ça le problème. Un double trouble. Le coût de la vie augmente. 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 Fait que le coût de la vie qui augmente, parallèlement au surendettement, ça fait qu'on est rendu à un point problématique. Le problème, c'est qu'on est en train d'avoir un effondrement sur l'horizon. C'est possible que dès demain, ça commence. Lundi, c'est le 30 juin, le dernier jour de juin de 2025, c'est possible que ça commence dès le jour, même lundi, le dernier jour de c'est le dernier jour de juin, dans le fond, parce qu'on est dans l'été, bien sûr. Là. On est officiellement dans l'été, bien sûr. C'est quelque chose qu'il faut qu'on ait de conséquences, puis de conséquences de savoir que dans cette épreuve difficile pour bien des gens. Wow, j'aime ça. Épreuve difficile. Moi-même, mon seul stress maintenant est financier. À part ça, ça va bien. Je suis jovial, je peux être intense, je peux être concentré, mais j'aime pas la violence, je suis pas dangereux. Mes théories sont dangereuses. Les implémenter sont dangereuses pour nos antagonistes qui sont antagonistes. Quand je dis à nous là, qui sont antagonistes, je fais toujours référence au collectif de l'Amérique du Nord. Parce que le Québec, c'est un des 63 aussi. Une des 63, là. Pour l'Empire, le collectif, les 63, bien sûr. Et c'est quelque chose, bien sûr, il faut que je fasse bon aussi. Fait que là, je vais arrêter de discuter de ça. Je vais juste me concentrer sur la TRD, théorie de la refusion de la dette. La TRD, théorie de la refusion de la dette, c'est la théorie qu'il faut qu'on fasse l'implémentation. La TRD. Pourquoi je dis ça encore une fois? Parce qu'on est à un niveau de surendettement énorme, puis parallèlement à ce surendettement, il y a le coût de la vie qui n'arrête pas d'augmenter. C'est ça le problème, ça n'arrête pas d'augmenter, ça n'arrête pas. C'est à chaque semaine, à chaque jour que je mets une augmentation du coût de la vie, des prix. Problème, bien sûr, c'est les cartes de crédit aussi. C'est ça le problème en conséquence, vous comprenez? C'est des choses bien sûr qu'il faut que je dise moi-même. C'est des choses bien sûr qu'il faut que je dise moi-même, tu sais. Et bon, dans cette chose de situation qu'on est rendu aujourd'hui, mobile, c'est la TRD, théorie de la refusion de la dette. Fait que c'est quoi? La TRD, ça contient la théorie d'intégration monétaire. La théorie d'intégration monétaire, c'est la théorie que les Européens, ils ont fait de l'implémentation, tu sais. Ils ont fait de l'implémentation, bien sûr. C'est des choses qu'il faut que je fasse moi-même, tu sais. Dans la situation que vous êtes de convergence, dans la situation que vous êtes, dans cette situation d'avoir de l'enfant, puis d'avoir bien sûr des choses, bien sûr, qu'on est rendu à faire nous-mêmes, un gros travail de avoir une solution, parce que c'est ça le travail. Trouver une solution à un problème. Vis-à-vis de la géopolitique, je ne suis pas un expert dans les finances, dans l'économie, dans le commerce, mais je suis un expert dans la géopolitique, c'est mon intérêt spécial, je suis un analyste intéressé en géopolitique. Quand dans la géopolitique, on doit savoir un peu des finances, on doit avoir une connaissance des finances, non? Des finances, non? So that's what it is with that. Et ces choses-là, bien sûr que moi, il faut que je le fasse moi-même. C'est des choses de moi-même qu'il faut que je le dise. Dans quelque chose de convergence, bien sûr, pour le faire de la point de citation, d'avoir un point de divergence qui mène, que même si je suis neurodivergent, ben, ça fait que je propose quelque chose sur la table qui est de conséquence pour une solution. Pour une solution. La solution, c'est la TRD. Il n'y a pas d'autre solution. Ben, quelque chose qui ressemble à ma TRD, oui. Mais fondamentalement, l'essence, il faut que ça ressemble à ma théorie en essence. Fondamentalement. Il faut que ça ressemble à ma théorie. La TRD, il faut que ça ressemble à la TRD, théorie de la refusion de la dette. C'est des choses, bien sûr, qu'il faut qu'on fasse dans ce point de convergence. Puis c'est des choses, bien sûr, qu'il faut qu'on aille dans ce point de convergence de la situation, d'avoir un point de convergence où on est rendu à avoir un point de crise externe pour avoir dans ce point de convergence qu'on est rendu dans ce... C'est la TRD, je vous l'explique maintenant. Théorie de la refusion de la dette, ça intègre, ça inclut en dedans d'elle la théorie d'intégration monétaire. Qu'est-ce que c'est la théorie d'intégration monétaire? C'est la théorie financière que les Européens ont fait l'implémentation en Europe. L'implémentation en Europe. Dans les années 80, les Européens ils ont fait l'implémentation de la théorie d'intégration monétaire. Les Allemands, ils ont détruit leur banque centrale. Les Français ont détruit leur banque centrale aussi. Les Italiens aussi, plusieurs pays. Ils ont établi une nouvelle banque, la Banque centrale d'Europe, qui depuis les années 90, qui fait bien sûr, qui ont une nouvelle monnaie sur l'euro. Ils n'ont plus leur ancienne monnaie. Fait que dans ma TRD, ça contient cette théorie d'intégration monétaire. Fait que je vous l'explique. On doit le faire. On est en train d'avoir un effondrement financier, le coût de la vie s'augmente, le surendettement, vous imaginez là, c'est des sans-emploi, de plus en plus, bien sûr. Fait qu'on va prendre toute la dette publique-privée, bien sûr. On va prendre toute la dette publique-privée, mon 10 000, ton 10 000. On va faire, bien sûr, pour avoir, bien sûr, dans l'affaire, pour être dans le point de convergence, pour être dans la situation d'avoir une affaire, d'être plus solide, d'avoir une solidification du collectif de civilisation de l'Amérique du Nord. Et c'est des choses, bien sûr, pour avoir dans ce point de convergence, pour être dans ce point de convergence, d'avoir une solution, bien sûr. Fait que dans ce point de solution, c'est la TRD, théorie de la refusion de la dette. Fait qu'on va prendre toute la dette publique-privée, on va faire la refusion ensemble, et toute cette dette publique-privée, on va faire la conversion de la dette publique canadienne, incluant mon 10 000, dans la devise des États-Unis. On va faire l'addition de cette devise ensemble, on va faire la création d'une nouvelle devise. Fait que toute la dette publique-privée, mon 10 000, ton 10 000, son 10 000, on va faire la création de cette nouvelle monnaie, on va faire la création de l'unité d'échange universelle. Ça va être basé sur le dollar des États-Unis. sur la valeur des États-Unis. Fait que toute la dette publique-privée de côte à côte, de côte à côte, de côte à côte, toute cette dette publique-privée, de côte à côte, on va faire la conversion, incluant mon 10 000 dans cette dette publique-privée du Canada de côte à côte, on va faire la refusion dans la dette, conversion dans la devise des États-Unis. Fait que toute la dette publique-privée canadienne, additionnée, cumulatif, ensemble, incluant mon 10 000, on va faire la conversion dans la devise des États-Unis. On va faire l'addition parce que ma TRD, il faut qu'on fasse l'implémentation ensemble avec la devise des États-Unis. Parce que c'est binational, la TRD, il faut qu'on fasse l'implémentation binationale. Fait que tout cet argent-là, on va mettre ensemble pour la création d'une nouvelle banque. On va faire la création d'une nouvelle banque, mais on va faire la création d'une nouvelle monnaie. Une nouvelle monnaie, on va faire la création de la UI. U point unité, point échange, point universel. U point unité, point échange, point universel. UI. U point unité, point échange universel. UI. L'unité d'échange universel. U point unité, point échange, point universel. L'unité d'échange universel aura la valeur du dollar des États-Unis. Aura la valeur du dollar des États-Unis. Aura la valeur du dollar des États-Unis. Et ces choses-là, bien sûr, qu'il faut qu'elles soient faites dans le point de convergence, que ça soit bien sûr dans ce point de convergence qu'on est rendu aujourd'hui. On doit le faire. Je sais pas, je vois. Il y a un surendettement énorme, mais c'est qu'il faut que je sois prudent. Il faut que je sois vraiment prudent parce que je passe ici, puis. Fait que dans ce point de convergence, il faut qu'on fasse la TRD. Théorie de la refusion de la dette. Fait qu'il n'y a pas, bien sûr. Il n'y a pas d'autre solution, dans le fond, à ce problème qu'on vit maintenant. Fait que toute cette dette-là, on va faire la conversion ensemble. On va prendre toute cette dette publique-privée, bien sûr, pour le faire, bien sûr, dans ce point de convergence, bien sûr, dans le faire de faire une clarité sur qu'est-ce qu'on doit faire. C'est urgent, c'est ça qu'il faut qu'on se préoccupe, bien sûr. Il faut qu'on se préoccupe dans ce point de convergence pour le faire, dans ce ex-ingrédient, bien sûr, pour le faire. Fait que ce point de vue, il faut qu'on fasse dans ce point de contingence. Fait que cette nouvelle monnaie, on va faire la création avec les États-Unis ensemble. Tout cet argent-là, avec tout cet argent-là, on va rebâtir l'infrastructure du Québec. On va financer l'entraînement physique, financer les gens au tourisme, bâtir les 44 tunnels, bâtir... T'es derrière, t'as rien, man. On va bâtir les 44 tunnels. On va bâtir les 44 tunnels. C'est des choses, bien sûr, qu'il faut qu'on aille, bien sûr, dans ce point de convergence. Ben, la TRD, c'est la solution. Vous pouvez vous ostiner là-dessus, mais bien sûr, vous pouvez vous ostiner là-dessus, bien sûr, dans ce point de convergence. Vous pouvez vous ostiner là-dessus, mais dans ce point de convergence, vous pouvez vous ostiner, mais tenez compte, bien sûr, que il n'y a pas de solution. Ben, il faut que ça ressemble ma TRD. C'est ça le problème, vous comprenez? Il faut que ça ressemble en théorie ma TRD. C'est ça le problème fondamentalement. Parce que la solution qui se trouve, c'est fondamentalement la TRD. C'est sûr que ça peut être modifié, mais il faut que ça ressemble en principe. Fait que le principe fondamentalement de l'économie, des finances, ça ne peut pas être changé. Vous comprenez? Ça ne peut pas être changé. On peut rajouter d'autres choses, on peut mettre des détails, mais bien sûr, on ne peut pas faire le changement, tu sais. Et bien sûr, c'est des choses comme ça qu'il faut qu'on fasse. Ouais, je vois rien, même. Là, de rien. Je vois rien. Et c'est ça. la TRD, la création de l'UE. On va faire l'implémentation. Oh, cette maison a été vendue, je voulais acheter pour mon ami anonyme, j'ai pas d'argent. Je suis stressé, mais je pensais que j'allais écrire des chansons pour Céline. Ben, bon, ça n'a pas marché, mais quelqu'un l'a acheté au bord de l'eau, au bord de l'eau, bien sûr, au bord de l'eau, mais j'aimais ça et acheter à mon ami anonyme, bien sûr, une affaire, bien sûr. Et c'est des choses, bien sûr, qu'il faut qu'on aille. Et c'est ça. I'm free. Je suis libre. Freiheit, 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 Freiheit. Je suis libre. Libre. Localisé. De rien. De rien. Zéro. Pas de dette, ouais. Fait que la TRD. J'aimerais ça manger un jour, là, la salle drive-in. Fait que toute cette dette-là, on va la prendre de côte à côte. On va la prendre de côte à côte. Oh, s'il vous plaît, mettez ça dans les poubelles, de même. Fait qu'on va prendre toute la dette, public-privé. Fait qu'on va faire cette refusion-là. Fait que c'est ça. Okay, get ready for some cadence. 4-minute cadence, 4-minute cadence, 4-minute cadence. That's all we're gonna do. 4-minute cadence. That's how we're gonna sing that rock and roll. For the left and for the right. For the blue and for the left. I'm getting some thirsty. That's the left. For the let's go cadence. Freestyle mode, created in freestyle mode right here by the river. By the river in the sun. We gotta love that only one. That's what you be. That's what you see. And you know just how it be. And you know just how you see. There we go and there we see. So you see what we do. Dragon army on the left. That you know we on the set. That you know ready the best.